All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are we doing? I see KQ on YouTube saying hi, Chosen hi. Welcome. Kiara, tomorrow is biology. If you're doing a grade one tomorrow. All right, good evening, everybody. Things looking bleak. What do you say?
No, I think I got biology, man. I'm good. I'm good with
You're
biology.
good.
Yeah.
All right, all right, all right. Good, good, good. Javon,
Biology is failure. Biology is failure. That's all I had to say.
biology is what?
Biology is real failure. That's all I had to say.
It's failing. Why?
I
Biology
go
is.
past, but like I don't feel like I'll get one. I don't like biology. I feel like it's just a lot to remember. And my memory is like short memory. I just can't remember.
You're more of a chem or a physics person?
Not at all. Biology is the only science subject I do and I just struggle.
And you're struggling with
And alright, if you ask me anything like respiration and thing, I'd know the answer. But you see from the time you're like start to talk about the ion thing, nah, that
oh
isn't.
my. All right. Well, let's try to fill in some gaps in your learning to help you in the exam. I must say from the start, I can't possibly do the entire syllabus in one night. And I just had a 2 hour session with my med school students as well. So I'm already exhausted. So I'm not sure how much I can push in with you. But let's see. Let's go on. Let's go and do as much as we can do. Right. I remember looking at my previous live videos from previous years, and I was 4 hours into it, 5 hours into it, and I'm wondering, wow, time really really changes because I am after
That
2 hours.
was the life. That was the life. I wish they could do that with people.
Ellie, let's see what we can do tonight. Let's see what we can do tonight. Let's see what we can do tonight. But I noticed somebody else is going live for biology on
Yeah.
online, and I don't like the competing. I don't like the competing, to be quite honest. Anyway,
I think it's
let's
so
see what we
encouraging.
can do. So I'm gonna give the others, come on, like the video so the notification pushes out to the others. And persons who are here, encourage your classmates to join us so we can get straight into it. I'm gonna pull up our syllabus so I am guided by the syllabus to ensure that the things that I'm talking about are exactly or more so what might come on the exam tomorrow. I have a fair good idea of what they like to bring in biology so that will benefit you.
So you feel like respiration and breathing would come for sure.
If they ask you, if they bring a question, they ask you probably distinguish between breathing and gases exchange.
Yeah,
But
I feel like they would ask what's the difference
if
between
that
it.
comes, it will just be a 1 mark or a 2 mark. So if you have to pass the exam because the only thing you know is respiration and diffusion, I'm a bit sorry for you, no?
Nah. I know a lot. I know a few, but
You
you
know,
know,
like, so I asked if you have to be writing CSEC to join the Zoom. No, anybody can join the Zoom. Right? That's why I send the link there, right? Anybody can join the Zoom. I want the class to be as interactive as possible. I did tell people we're gonna start at 8, so I'm basically wasting some time so we can go close to 8 as possible. And you see, most of the stuff, some of the things that we're gonna talk about tonight, I actually do talk about with my second year School of Medicine students as well. So if you guys learn your biology at high school level and learn the biology really well, especially the disease biology and so on, you go on to use that same knowledge when you are in medical school or when you're in nursing school or anything as it relates to medical education. So I just don't want you to just learn for learning and for cramming for an exam and passing an exam, but try to learn for the sake of your career choice in the future, right? So go ahead and share the video, share the live. We're on. and ready to kick start things, we have to make sure we cover things like genetics and genetic engineering, because there will be a section, and that's probably the only thing we are quite sure on that will appear in the exam. There will be a section on genetic and genetic engineering and genetic inheritance. So we want to make sure that those things are highlighted very early, especially when your brain is still fresh, right? So I probably would start this session with starting to talk about genetics and genetic engineering. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start by talking about that. All right, good. So how's everybody doing? Are we feeling a grade 1 tomorrow? Or is the grade 1 feeling us?
I'm feeling grade 1. I'm feeling great.
We there, but we not there at the same time.
Feeling the grade 1. Feeling the grade 1.
Feeling the grade 1. All right, I know my students, you ought to feel a grade 1, because I will not be forgiving you if you don't give me a grade. No pressure, but I'm just saying, right? We've done too much for you to not be able to get that grade 1. All right, so as soon as I figure out how to manipulate the screen, I will start. I'm not sure why. Oh, no, it's moving. All right, so genetic inheritance. Genetic inheritance. That's what we're talking about first. Are you seeing that thing at the bottom there? It's kind of annoying me. And my OCD won't let me leave it alone. Okay, you're not seeing it, but I'm seeing it. Anyway, good. So genetic inheritance. Let's start by saying your parents are going to contribute to the features that you have, and one male, one female come together to present a very unique set of genetic information. The male and the female contribute equally to the offspring in the sense of contributing a haploid number of chromosome each. What's the haploid number? What's a haploid number? And what's a diploid number? These are terms that we can be asked to define in the exam. So haploid just represents half, and I like to bring out that H there, H for half and the H for haploid, and diploid, think of it as double, right? So your haploid number is half the number of chromosomes in a normal cell. So we have 23 chromosomes and 46 in a somatic cell. So 23 in your sex cells. What's another name for your sex cells? Germ cells, right? So sex cells, germ cells, and your diploid number of chromosomes is always going to be present in your. Where do we always have our diploid number of chromosomes? Our somatic cells, right? Our somatic cells or the body cells, right? Good. But we are talking about sex cells here. So the male in the sperm, we have 23 chromosomes, and in the ovum, or that secondary oocyte, we have 23 chromosomes. Together, when those two gametes fuse, we have a restoration of the diploid number, that 46, right? So genetic inheritance generally assess how diseases, how characteristics are passed on through these chromosomes, through these gametes, right? Are we there? Are we following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The last time I was able to squeeze out and squeeze in. I don't know why I'm not allowed to do that. All right, so let's quickly talk about sexual reproduction I know if this comes tomorrow, all of us will be very happy because y'all know about sex very good, eh? It's probably the only thing. This is probably the only thing y'all know about in the biology syllabus.
What kind of
Of
talk is
course.
that?
Oh,
Nah.
wouldn't.
All right, so let's try to have a schematic of the female reproductive organ. Any recollection of what this looks like? I mean, it's not the way I draw it, but what
Not a
does this look
vagina.
like?
A slingshot. An IUD.
You probably
Purple
wouldn't even know.
female. The female.
You probably wouldn't know what that look like if it was looking you in the face. But we're not gonna talk about that tonight. We're gonna behave. We have a YouTube audience. Anyway, good. So let's label the parts of this. The female reproductive organ. Mind you, the name of the organ is the female reproductive organ and not the vagina. Oftentimes students make that mistake of saying it's the vagina. No, the vagina is just a part of it, right? So the vagina or the vaginal tract is just that tube that connects the outer part of the reproductive organ to the inner part, right? And the vaginal opening goes to the cervix, and the cervix is actually the lower part of the uterus, right? So the uterus, also known as what?
Womb.
Womb, right? But biology students, you're gonna simply write uterus. The oviduct, also known as the what? Or fallopian tubes. And on both sides of our fallopian tube, we have our ovaries, right? Good. So that's a schematic of what we're dealing with. So the exam can ask you to go ahead. Give me a minute. Let me turn on my fan. Is it too noisy or can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we could hear fine.
All right, good.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
so
can hear fine.
the exam can ask you to draw with the aid of a diagram, explain the process of fertilization in animals. Fertilization in animals, fertilization in human is a very similar picture. It's the same thing really in the different animals, right? So what you have happening here, sperm is deposited in the vaginal tract and millions of sperm are actually deposited there. And the sperm begin their ascent upward in that female reproductive tract. And the tail, there's a tail, they can ask you to draw this in the exam. There's a tail, there's a mid piece, then there is the head. So the tail, they can ask you to draw and label that. The mid piece, what does the mid piece have? Anybody?
Mitochondria, sir.
Mitochondria, very good. And it also has the energy store, right? The head would be where your nucleus and so on is in. So when fertilization happens, it's this piece alone that goes into. Everything else falls off. So whenever an individual has mitochondrial DNA, they're getting a mitochondrial DNA from who? The mother or the father?
The father.
Father.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Because you missed that whole teaching lesson there. When a person has a mitochondrial DNA, do they get a mitochondrial DNA from the mother or the father?
Father. The mother, sir.
Mother.
The father.
Why the mother?
Because he just stated that the tailpiece falls off, so
The
it won't be able
mid-piece
to
falls off. So there's no, right, thank you. So if the mid-piece falls off, the part with the mitochondrial DNA falls off. So the man doesn't contribute mitochondrial DNA. It's only the secondary oocyte or that ovum that has a mitochondrial DNA, which is basically from the mother. So the mitochondrial DNA in the offspring is actually from the mother. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So let's go back to what we were talking about. Sperm is deposited into that vaginal tract, and they begin their journey upward. Newer studies are showing that they're not swimming, but they're doing like a propelling upwards. It doesn't matter. All I want you to understand is that the sperm are there and they're moving upward, right? What am I doing? I had a better control of this thing the last time, man. Hold on. Let me stop and start back. Oh, good. This is nice. Good, good, good. Yes, where were we? So we were talking about the female reproductive organ and about fertilization. So let's try to draw. And I asked you earlier what it looks like, and it looks pretty much like the devil's horn, and that is quite ironic. It makes you do crazy things.
That's deep.
No way.
All right, good. So sperm is deposited in the vaginal tract and begin their ascent upward. Because the vaginal tract is acidic, many of the sperm are actually killed by the natural environment there, right? So not quite a lot of them, not all of them make the journey upward, right? I'm trying to label in case somebody join us late and they want to catch this diagram because it can be on the exam, right? And then we have that fimbria there. We didn't label that earlier. Right. So the uterus also will remove a lot of it as well. They die there, same environment. And when they get to the level of your oviduct, just about 500 of them are there. So just goes to show you of the millions that were deposited, only a small amount actually make it to enter that fallopian tube. So the widest part of that fallopian tube is called what? Anybody remembers from my biology class? I usually talk about this. The widest part of the fallopian tube is called what?
The lumen or ampulla.
Ampulla. So the ampulla is where that egg, once the egg was released, because it's usually widest and it usually sits in that area. So, and the egg actually, all right, please stop sending me messages. You're distracting me. Right. So the egg actually releases cytokines, which are basically signaling molecules that call the sperm in the direction of where that egg is. Right. So when that happens, this here can become fertilized. So let's talk about what happens when that fertilization actually occurs. So we have the nuclei, the male and the female gametes, their nuclei come together. When you have that fusion of those two nuclei, what do we call that? Come on, what do we call that?
A zygote.
Yeah, the cell we call a zygote, but when you have the male and female gametes fusing, what do we call that?
Fertilization.
That's fertilization, right? So we can ask you to define that term there. That's fertilization. Is there another term you know to represent that same process? Okay, in addition to the zygote, what is another term we can use for that?
Oocyte.
Zygote, embryo. We have our embryo. Where is my cursor not? Okay. Same as your embryo. Good. So when this cell now fuses, male and female gametes fuse, at that point of fusion, everything about that being, no, somebody's saying implantation. No, it's not implantation. We'll talk about that in a bit. So this is just fertilization, male and female gametes fusing, right? Everything about that being, that baby, that human embryo has been determined. right? However, we will not see the full manifestation of the decisions or what the gametes had in them until the baby has grown, right? But at the point of fertilization, everything has already been determined. For example, who determines the sex of the baby? Man or woman?
Man.
The man, right? Our females have two X chromosomes. The sex chromosome that they have will be two X chromosomes. And the man has an X and a Y. If in a sperm there is the X chromosome or there is the Y chromosome, the woman will only give an X, right? That's all she has to give, X. If the man contributes another X, this is going to be a baby. A baby what? Boy or girl?
Girl.
And if the man contributes a Y and the woman contributes an X, what's that going to be?
A boy.
A boy. Right? So boy, girl, right? That's a basic understanding of what that involves. The male determines the sex of the baby, and you know the reason why. We just explained that there. Right? If your girlfriend has an X and a Y chromosome, your girlfriend is not your girlfriend. Moving on. Javon? You got silent now. You didn't get a biology joke. Javon, you understand the biology joke?
Yeah.
What's the joke?
Oh?
If I say your girlfriend has an X and Y chromosome, why is that funny?
Wait, see about that here, no, sir.
See, my understanding biology. I said your
She's a man.
girlfriend has an X and a Y chromosome.
Mm-hmm.
There's a biology joke. You got the joke? If I
No,
got explain
no.
the joke, buddy.
Right now.
If I got
Biology,
explain the joke, if you got calm down, man. You see the biology. Math hard for
biology
you.
is Rip Skull.
English the hard for you. English be the hard for you. Biology hard. I want to see your results,
English
man.
even hard. Biology.
When you get your results, must bring it to me. Let me see what we're at. Anyway, if your girlfriend get a Y chromosome, your girlfriend is not your girlfriend, it's your boyfriend.
Oh, well, then you get friends, I'm on.
All right, good. Moving on. So somebody was talking about
Come on, see hard for you, sir.
Somebody was talking about implantation. So what's implantation? Implantation is when this zygote now, that fusion of that male and female gamete, finds its way down into the uterus, right? When that zygote implants itself into the walls of that uterus and begins to grow, that zygote has now implanted, right? So that's what we call, I don't understand. I'm not sure what you don't understand. But that's implantation. Everybody understand what's implantation? CX can ask you to define those words. Fertilization, implantation, gestation. What's gestation? When the embryo implants itself there, it will grow and develop there for the next 9 months, right? And when that happens, that whole period of pregnancy is called the gestational period, right? So that's gestation. Good. Any other terms that you came across that you want me to bring out here? Anybody else? Any other terms you want me to bring out here? No? All right, good. So there's something else I was to tell you about here. It's not coming though. Good. So let's go back now to the genetics aspect that we were talking about earlier. Good. So we got to the point where we have already the technology beats him by. Anyway, so the man has contributed an X and Y, the X and the Y chromosome in the case of the man and the XX in the case of the woman. Some diseases are genetic diseases. Some diseases are sex-linked diseases. What do you understand by the term sex-linked disease? What do you understand by the term sex-linked disease?
They're carried on these
Disease can be passed on through sex.
That's not it. That's if you write in the exam, that's an F grade. A sex-linked disease. Go on.
Certain disease that's carried on the sex chromosomes.
Thank you very much, Nazia. The sex-linked disease, also called your X-linked disease because they are more common on the X chromosome. But these are diseases that are passed on through the sex chromosome. It's not diseases that are spread through sex. Diseases spread through sex are called what, students?
STDs, sex transmitted
STDs.
STIs, STDs, right? So it's not the same thing, right? So again, your sex-linked diseases are diseases that are passed through your sex chromosome. That is the X chromosome or the Y chromosome. Oftentimes you hear only about the X chromosome because it's the most common. The X chromosome is a larger chromosome. Somebody who is trying to write on the screen, can you kindly stop doing that? Stop moving the screen. Yes, the X chromosome is a larger chromosome. So most of the diseases would actually be passed on through mutations on that X chromosome. But some disease can also be present in the Y chromosome, but we don't really focus on that in this biology here. Whenever you see the exam talks about what is an X-linked disease, they mean what? Same as a sex-linked disease. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Persons on YouTube, you're following us. Are you able to understand what I'm talking about? Am I too fast? All right, good. So let's continue. So there are some terms that we have to know when we are talking about genetic inheritance. And if you don't know, I have a YouTube video on genetic inheritance. Just type in my name and genetic inheritance. You should be able to see that video there, and it will help you with your understanding of genetic inheritance, right? And you can try to do that on your own pace as well, right? So genetic inheritance, we know for a fact, will be on the exam. That last question, second to last question, will actually focus on genetic inheritance. So it's something you have to know, right? So let's talk about some terms quickly. So we're going to talk about allele. We will talk about gene. We will talk about locus. We will talk about homozygous, heterozygous, dominant, recessive. We will talk about genotype and phenotype. So let's think about those there. Good. So what's an allele? What's an allele?
alleles, two are the same genes.
Alternative copies of the same gene, right? So alternative copies of the same gene. And why would someone have an alternative copy or have two copies of the same gene?
All the ones they look like the same person.
Oh my goodness. Why you're saying all the wrong answers tonight?
So because never mind.
Why does some
father?
one from each of their parents, right? One from the mother, one from the father. So a person has alternative copies of the same gene because they're getting one from their parent. We said earlier that 23 chromosomes come from mother, 23 come from father. So when fertilization happens, each of those chromosomes are duplicated. So let's say the father has 1 right up to 23. The mother lays down her 1 to 23 as well. So each of them are contributing another copy of the same chromosome. Likewise, at the level of the allele, on those chromosomes, they're having a duplication of that as well. 2 copies of the same allele, alternative forms of a gene. Is that clear, students?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. And what's a gene now? And how do we represent our allele? In terms of genetic inheritance, how do you represent an allele?
Letter, sir.
With a letter, right. What's a gene? Anybody?
Genes are different types of alleles, or alleles that code for specific characteristics.
It's a protein that code for specific characteristic, right? So your protein coding for specific characteristic is referred to as your gene. And what's your locus?
Locus is the location of the gene on a chromosome.
On the chromosome. Very good. So the location of the position of that gene on the chromosome is known as the locus, right? Then we have the words homozygous and heterozygous. Homozygous and heterozygous. What do you get from the word homozygous, Azad? Homozygous.
My bad, I was looking for the word. Homozygous is where there is the same chromosome.
Not same chromosome,
Not same,
but
same.
All right, good. We'll take the word same. And then heterozygous means what?
Different,
right? So we mentioned just now that we want a person has alternative copies of a gene, right? So if
Yes.
they have 2 of the same copies, then they're referred to as homozygous. And if they have 2 different copies, they are referred to as heterozygous.
Heterozygous.
Everybody is clear on that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So when a person has 2 different copies, saying the word heterozygous is sufficient, because heterozygous simply means they have 2 different copies. For example, X and Y. Isn't this person a heterozygote? Isn't this
Yes,
person
sir.
heterozygous? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have 2 different copies of that allele, right? So in a case where we have, though, a person who is homozygous, we cannot ever use the word homozygous alone. We have to use the word homozygous with another word. Why? Because homozygous means same. But same what? So we want to go on to understand what is the same. So we have a dominant now and we have a recessive. Remember we said earlier that we use letters to indicate what the alleles look like? Well,
Yes, sir.
when we have a dominant trait, your dominant trait will always be expressed, even when it's just 1 copy of that dominant trait. So your dominant trait is always expressed, even if it's just 1 copy of that dominant trait, right? And then your recessive traits, on the other hand, recessive traits are only expressed when
Paired with itself.
paired with itself, right? So in other words, for you to see a recessive trait, that recessive trait must be in a duplicate. So both the student must be able to inherit 2 copies. As a student, I meant the individual, the organism, inherits 2 recessive alleles from their parent to have that recessive trait, right? For example, a short individual. A short individual will have to have 2 recessive alleles to show off that recessive trait of being short. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So now we're going to go back now and tidy up our term homozygous. So when we use the word homozygous now, because we just learned about dominant and recessive, we now have to tidy up and say what do we mean by dominant and what do we mean by recessive. So you can now have a new term, homozygous dominant and homozygous recessive. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody's homozygous dominant for a trait, it means that they receive 2 copies of the dominant allele from both of their parents. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Let me rephrase that. They receive 1 copy from parent 1 and 1 copy from parent 2. But if they're homozygous recessive, it means they receive 1 copy of the recessive trait from 1 parent and another copy of that recessive trait from the other parent. So they're homozygous recessive because they have 2 copies of the same recessive trait. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Our next term is genotype and phenotype. And we just spoke about being tall and being short. If we're going to look at the definition of the word genotype and the word phenotype, what is the genotype? What is the genotype?
Or is it characteristics that are seen?
Nope, that's not correct. The genotype would be our genetic makeup, right? The genetic makeup, what is in the genes, what is in the DNA, what is in the nucleus. And our phenotype, that is the one that is seen. So don't get carried away. These are terms that I know you know, but don't get too excited and write the wrong thing in the exam. The phenotype, why am I having such a hard time with the screen tonight, man? The phenotype, still don't know what's going on here. All right, hold on. Good. I think I finally got it here. Good. So it's only me now. Good, lovely. No more annoying little brats. Good. Where am I? So genotype and phenotype. Your genotype is our genetic makeup of the individual. And the phenotype is the observed characteristic, right? So when we look at someone and we see the person is tall or we see the person is short, what is that? Genotype or phenotype?
Phenotype.
Phenotype.
Phenotype. So what we can look and see is the
Phenotype.
phenotype, and what is in the genes would be our genotype. Which contribute to which? Does your genotype contribute to your phenotype?
Yes, or
Yes, sir.
The genotype contributes to your phenotype. But can other factors also impact what the genes have and what the outcome might be? Like what?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Like what?
Starvation.
The environment.
The environment. So your genes might have a very good characteristic. You might have inherited some very good genes from your parents, but the environment plays a very important role as well. So not because you have inherited these genes mean that you would have the outcome always a desirable characteristic. The environment plays a negative role or a positive role depending on what we are talking about. Take for instance, your mother's a doctor, your father's a lawyer, and you end up being a thief man. I don't mean you, I mean as an example. Right? What is it because you lack proper genes? No. Your
No.
parent has given you everything that they can. But if you had 9 broke friends who wanted to be thief men and they encourage you to do that, what do you think you're gonna do?
Work hard, sir.
You work hard. The point of making, the environment impacts what the outcome is likely to be. So, for example, somebody might have inherited the characteristic or the trait of being tall from their parents, but they are not fed properly. Their nutrition is poor. If the nutrition is poor, do they have what it takes to get out that physical feature that they inherited?
No, because they're
No.
malnourished.
Right. So that's where that comes in, right? Again, that is the environment playing a role or affecting the gene that were inherited, right? Good. So now let's work some problems now. So the exam will bring a question tomorrow. Hopefully it's a simple, straightforward question. I usually give hard and difficult questions with my students, but let's start small. So let's say Farmer Brown got a tall pea plant. So tall, and Farmer Joseph has a short pea plant. And they want to see what will happen when the two pea plants are crossed. Now, which one is a dominant characteristic, the tall pea plant or the short pea plant? The tall. Good. So right off the bat, what feature is this? Phenotype or genotype?
Phenotype.
Phenotype. Good. Now, for the y'all some bright, I must say I'm impressed. But for the phenotype, what would the possible genotypes be that lead to this phenotype?
Capital T, the tall.
We don't want to hear letters. We don't want to hear capital T and common T. Let's use the terms that we've just learned.
Homozygous dominant.
Homozygous.
Homozygous dominant or
Heterozygous.
heterozygous. Very good. So I want you to remember tomorrow in the exam that anytime somebody presents with a dominant characteristic, they have two possibilities: homozygous dominant or heterozygous. Remember, the dominant characteristic will always be expressed even when it's paired with another recessive allele, right? So this person is going to be tall in both instances. But for a short characteristic or the recessive characteristic, what is this going to be?
Heterozygous.
Homozygous recessive.
Homozygous recessive. Your recessive characteristic will always be paired with two copies of the same, right? So homozygous recessive. Good. So in the exam tomorrow, you can do one of two things. You can use your Punnett square, an actual square you have to complete, and you can put the parents on either side. So we can put the tall pea plant there or the short pea plant here. Doesn't matter where you put it, right? But let me give you a little more insight. Let's say Farmer Brown had a tall pea plant that came from several generations of all tall pea plants. What is this? What is the genotype there?
Homozygous dominant.
It will be homozygous dominant. If it comes from a generation of all tall, then it must be homozygous dominant. But let's say it's a tall pea plant, but in that tall pea plant's family, there were some offspring or there were some pea plants that were short. What can you therefore tell me is that genotype of this tall pea plant?
Recessive.
There's no heterozygous recessive. Heterozygous means stop speaking. Listen to what I'm saying. Whenever you use the word heterozygous means different. You don't need to go on to say anything because heterozygous means different. So you have one allele and another allele that look different from each other. A dominant one and a recessive one. You don't say heterozygous recessive. The term recessive or dominant is only used when we have the word homozygous there. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's recap. This pea plant came from a generation of a mixed picture. So you have some tall and some short. What would be the genotype of this pea plant here?
Heterozygous.
Heterozygous.
It would be heterozygous. Very good. Right? So use that knowledge tomorrow to answer that question there. Right? So let's say this one came from all tall pea plants. So we have what picture? Common T, capital T, common T. What's the term for this?
Heterozygous.
Heterozygous. Common T, capital T. What do we have?
Heterozygous.
Heterozygous.
Somebody's asking if the class is for just biology or human and social biology. The syllabi are very similar, so it will benefit you if you stay for human and social biology as well. It's almost identical. I will then tell you what you need to do differently for biology and HSB. But you should stay and learn the same because the same thing is going to help you.
I see, no see.
So common T versus capital T. What have you noticed I'm doing here?
Putting the dominant allele first.
Yes, the dominant allele always goes first, right? Good. So let's do the reverse of this now. Let's say this was a mixed picture and we had a heterozygous being crossed, a heterozygote being crossed with that homozygous recessive. What would our results be now? Tell me, was this here? Was it outcome here?
It will be heterozygous.
Common T, was that?
Homozygous recessive.
Recessive.
Was this term here?
Heterozygous.
And was this other term here?
Homozygous recessive.
Now you can do this same thing here by using lines. But I find the lines as a little confusing. But if you choose to do that, that's also fine. Right? Can you see that there? As the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But them enough lines there don't confuse some of y'all. Right? So if you don't understand your line, you can just draw your Punnett square. Now, they might ask you to interpret. So now you have to go on to do a ratio or something of that sort. So let's say you're asked to do your phenotypic ratio. Let's start with genotypic ratio first, or genotypic ratio. The genotype, remember we refer to the genotype as homozygous or so on, heterozygous, homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive or so, right? So let's look at that. What do we have here? What is this? This is 2 of 4, 2 of 4, right? 2 of 4 of what? What's this?
2 heterozygous.
So we say 50% heterozygous. And I like to tell my students, just put in parentheses what you mean by that, right? Colon and 50% homozygous recessive.
Recessive.
All right. You can narrow that down to be 2-2. That's your genotypic ratio. For your phenotypic ratio now, we want to talk about what the characteristics are that we are observing. So, is this individual here going to be tall or short? Tall or short?
Short.
Short, sir.
Short.
Y'all just repeating things that y'all hear.
You're the one gonna be tall.
Y'all just repeating what y'all hear. Y'all not trying to learn this thing. You're just repeating what somebody's saying. You just repeat. That's what a parrot does that. You know why the parrot does that? that the parrot has a small brain. If you do the same thing, nothing is separating you from a parrot. Good. So this here will be tall. Why? The person has at least one copy of a dominant trait, of a dominant allele, right? So this is tall. This one will be what? Tall or short?
Tall.
Tall, right? So what we have here now, 50%, 2 out of 4, tall, and 50%, 2 out of 4 again.
Short.
Short. Again, 2, 2 as your ratio. Everybody understands that?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Good.
Sir.
Lovely. Yeah? Somebody has a question? All right, good. Good. So moving on now. Let's say we have so let me show you something. Something that students oftentimes don't get. Let me look at this. Let's say this is the possibility. That's all this is showing us, a possibility. A possibility that if these two parents are crossed, this is the possibility of their outcome. If these parents are crossed and they happen to get 4 young pea plants, do you think that the first pea plant will be tall, the second pea plant will be short, the third one will be tall, the fourth one will be short? Is that how that goes?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, it doesn't go like that. It's a possibility or a probability. It can be that all the pea plants end up being tall, or all the pea plants end up being short. That's genetics, right? But it doesn't mean that because you have 4 children, one will look a certain way, the other one will look the other way, the other one will look the other way to represent one of each of these outcomes here. No, that doesn't work like that. Everybody understands that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The crossing is just showing you a possibility or a probability of the outcome being seen in the population. So this here is basic. This is what human and social biology will require of you. Human and social biology will require of you to do simple things like this. Biology now will take it a step further. Biology will take it a step further to include something we call sex-linked diseases. Now let's talk about it. Mary, at the middle of the party, met a man named Moses. What happened, man? Oh, right. Oh, good. Right. So Mary met Moses at this bottom house party, and they copulated. They did a thing. Little did Mary know, Moses was a colorblind man. He had a blue-green color blindness. You see what happens when you have sex with people at random parties? Don't do it. Don't do it. All right, so Moses was colorblind. He couldn't see blue or green. All right? And Mary herself, her father was colorblind. Her father had that blue-green color blindness. So therefore, Mary is what?
Carrier.
Very good. Mary is a carrier. Good. So if Mary is a carrier and she married, who was the person writing on the screen, man? I thought nobody should be able to do this. Kindly desist from doing it, please.
With the middle of the chain, you see that?
Right. What was I saying? Right. So Mary is a carrier while the man that she had a fling with has the disease. So this is what we're introducing here as sex-linked diseases now. The exam can also say X-linked disease. Same thing. For your sex-linked disease, this is what we would call a dihybrid cross. Why is it dihybrid? And your K biology will talk a lot about this. Why is it called a dihybrid? Versus a
Because we
monohybrid.
crossing 2 times.
Not crossing 2 times, but you're crossing two
persons.
characteristics, right? 2 different characteristics.
Okay,
And our monohybrid is crossing 1 characteristic. Sorry, I was replying to a text. So monohybrid, 1 characteristic, dihybrid, 2 characters. There's more to that, but we're not going to go into that. All I want you to know, your monohybrid cross will be what your AHSB syllabus will require of you. Your biology will take it a little further and do the dihybrid crosses. What are we crossing? 2 characteristics in your dihybrid cross. If a woman is a carrier and the man is affected, what does that tell you the disease is carried on? What chromosome is that carried on?
X chromosome.
The X
X
chromosome.
The X chromosome. Very good. Very good. You know, when you have students, why is Angel Perez joining this class? Huh? Anyway, yeah. No, Angel Perez was my grade 1 student from last year, so I don't know why she is joining. You see, when they finish, they miss you so much that they have to come again. Hi, Angel. Good night. Why are you here?
Morning.
Anyway, don't mind Angel.
I came to interrupt you and tell you that I miss you, and then this addition to be extremely grateful for you.
Yeah, looks like in the silver.
Okay. All right. Good night. Salutations, children. All the best tomorrow.
Sure, that's when I say somebody tell her, have a blessed night and thing. Sure,
You know, appreciate this, my grade 1 student.
Well respected youth.
Anyway, yes. So good. Pay attention. Good. That's what she's saying. So your monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross. Somebody do it for me quickly. Repeat that for me. What's your monohybrid versus your dihybrid?
Monohybrid is when it is passed on 1 chromosome.
No, it has nothing to do with chromosome.
Monohybrid is when you're crossing 1 characteristic.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And your dihybrid is crossing
2 characteristics.
2 characteristics. Very good. Please don't confuse the thing, man. Good. So let's say we're talking about that color blindness now, right? So that's a sex-linked disease. It's carried on the X chromosome, right? If you notice, let's say you put a man on the top, right? It doesn't matter. The man can go on the top or the side. It doesn't matter, right? I was about to put a Y down there. Why is that wrong? Javon wouldn't know that, huh? If you put a Y down here, Javon, why would that be wrong?
Because wait. The man alone does carry the Y.
Oh jeez. Bye.
I don't know.
To make it have
offspring.
2 men can have offspring, buddy. That's what we're showing you there. Oh God.
Oh,
you're shaming Trinidad. You're shaming Trinidad. Anyway, we moving on.
What kind of? It's just me. Not everybody knows. Everybody knows. It's just me. I saw Isaiah gonna get it once here.
All right, let me go. Good. So if we were crossing just this single characteristic, what cross would this be?
Mono.
Very good. But we are not crossing a single character. Let's say we are crossing blue-green color blindness and we're using an H to represent it. Right? The father had the disease. So which one we would use? The recessive one or the dominant one?
Recessive.
Recessive. The dominant will always be normal, right? So do we put anything at the Y here? Do we put anything next to that Y there?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, we don't, because the disease is carried on the X chromosome.
X
Is that
chromosome.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Are the persons on YouTube following us still? Are you able to understand what I'm talking about? All right, good. So the woman now, they said she was a carrier. What does that mean? For you to be a carrier, let's define that word carrier. A carrier is a person who passes or who can pass on a particular characteristic without being affected by that characteristic themselves. You understand that?
What?
Yes.
Yes, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
They're passing on the characteristic without being affected by the characteristic themselves. And can you tell me why that person is not affected by that characteristic?
There's not a dominant trait.
Very good, Nazia. Because they have at least one dominant trait. And the dominant trait will always come first, will therefore mask the effects of that recessive trait. All right? Good. Lovely. So what we put here, what we put next to this woman now?
Comma H.
Capital H and a common H. We understand why?
Yes, sir.
She's a carrier. She's a carrier. When a woman is a carrier, who would she pass on the disease to?
The boy.
Her son.
Her offspring.
Die persoon siya en ka person?
It's
Oh,
his son.
God. Her son. Her son. She would pass the disease on to her son because it's the woman that gives the X chromosome to her son. If it's a boy, if it's a son, who gave the Y chromosome to that son?
Father.
And the only X chromosome that the boy has came from who?
The mother.
The mother. Right? So the woman who's a carrier will always pass on the sex-linked disease to her sons. And who is oftentimes affected by a sex-linked disease? The man or the boy or the girl?
Yeah, boy.
The boy. Why? Because the boy has an X and a Y chromosome. He only has one copy. There's no backup. So if the X is affected, he will be suffering from that X-linked sex-linked disease. Is that clear? Anybody want me to go that over?
Yes, sir.
We good?
Yes, sir.
Lovely.
Yes, sir.
One more time for the road. So because the male has just one copy of each of the chromosome, if one is affected, he will be affected by that sex-linked disease, right? Good. So let's do this crossing now. I often tell my students to do the crossing of the sexes first and then do the other crossing. So X, 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 Y, X, Y, X, 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 Y, X, Y. So we cross that, and that's always going to be a 50-50 ratio. 2 boys, 2 girls. There's a 50% chance that the offspring will be boy, 50% chance girl, because there's only 2 possibilities, right? But that's not it. We have to now look at the disease we were talking about. So we put back capital H, common H. Capital H, that's all. Look at this one here now. Are we still following? What's this?
Yes,
Common H, common H. Common H, common H. Over this one here.
Common H.
Common H. Good. So tell me now. Let's interpret this. What is happening here? Is it a boy or a girl?
This is a girl.
A girl. Is the boy or a girl? This is Javon's girlfriend here.
No.
You know, boy, that one clock anymore.
Where's that
It's a
boy?
boy.
What kind of thing is that?
XX, boy or girl?
Yeah.
Girl.
I guess.
XY, boy or girl?
Boy.
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 Just testing you, warming you up. Now let's go back. XX. Disease
Again.
or no disease?
No disease.
No disease.
No disease.
No disease. But they
Carrier.
are carrying that
Carrier.
disease trait. So this girl is a what?
Carrier.
Carrier.
Carrier. Very good. Boy or girl again? Boy. Normal or diseased?
Disease.
Normal.
Normal. Good. And in this case here now, boy or girl? Girl. Normal or diseased?
Disease.
Disease. So if you notice, a girl can be affected by a sex-linked disease. But for a girl to be affected by a sex-linked disease, she must get what?
Common.
Both from father and mother.
She must have 2 abnormal genes inherited from both of her parents, right? So in other words, the mother has the disease or is a carrier of the disease, and the father has the disease. So both of her parents must have been affected for her to be having that disease. Is that clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. And this last one here, boy or girl?
Boy.
Boy. Disease or normal?
Disease.
Normal.
Disease.
Look at it from an H. He's diseased, right? So one was a normal boy and one was a diseased boy. So in this case, 50% normal boy, 50% diseased boy. In this case, 50% normal girl, but is a carrier, and 50% diseased girl. Is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
This is our sex-linked diseases. Sex-linked diseases would be the only one that will come in the exam for a dihybrid cross at CXC level. All right? Good. Now, let's do some other ones that we can commonly see in the exam. Let's say sickle cell. Sickle cell is not a dihybrid cross, but it might look like that, all right, in the way we set it up, all right? So let's say, because the sickle cell is a disease of the hemoglobin, being an abnormal hemoglobin, we use the H to indicate that, right? You don't necessarily have to do this, but it's the right thing to do, right? The H to show the hemoglobin molecule, and it's the hemoglobin molecule that's abnormal, right? Normal individual will have 2 adult hemoglobin. This is normal. This is completely normal. So when you inherit 2 normal chromosomes, this is adult hemoglobin. That's what the A stands for. This is a normal individual with normal hemoglobin. Sickle cell disease is when they inherit a sickle trait and they have 2 copies of that sickle trait from both of their parents. So this person is having the sickle cell disease. A person that has a normal adult hemoglobin and a sickle trait is going to be what? What do we call this individual there?
Carrier.
A carrier. Very good. So that person's a carrier, and just now we said a carrier is a person who is not affected by the disease, but a carrier in this case of sickle cell can have some manifestation of that disease, right? So it's a little different, right? But let's say sickle cell, we'll talk about sickle cell in a bit. Remind me to do it because my brain go very fast sometimes. So make sure we talk about sickle cell before we wrap up this chapter. Right, so let's say, let me see 2 random persons. Akila comes from a family that nobody has ever had sickle cell. So Akila never had sickle cell in her family. No sickle cell. And she marries Jonathan, I don't know why genetics questions always say somebody's gonna marry somebody. You know, y'all don't marry to chop. I shouldn't say that online. But anyway, yeah. But the questions are saying this the right thing. Hey, you don't believe what the question is saying. Anyway, Aquila married Jonathan. And Jonathan has the sickle cell disease. But Aquila was normal. How do we write that in our Punnett square?
Aquila got 2 A's.
Aquila has 2 what?
A's.
A's. Good. Yep. So we can put her there or we put her to the side. Doesn't matter. And what we write for Jonathan?
He got an A and an S.
He doesn't have he has a disease.
Oh,
What I
asthma.
just told you? The disease will be SS. If he was a carrier of the disease, he would have been AS. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Can anybody remind me why we're putting H? Does the H have any bearing on the outcome?
No, sir.
No,
Represent.
No bearing.
Enough.
All the H represents is hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin.
Right? You can choose to do that H if you want to, but it's the right thing to do, right? Because it's hemoglobin that you're showing the abnormality on. That's what happens in sickle cell. So in this case, just write back here H. Again, that H has no bearing on the outcome. So what do we have here? A and S. Which one is normal? A or S?
A.
A.
So which one we write first?
A.
Good.
A.
And
Yeah.
say A, S versus A. You put A first. AS, same thing, same thing. So in this case, if you have a normal woman or a normal person crossed with a person with the disease, all of their children will have what?
Sickle cell disease.
Trait. No.
You have the trait.
Remember, they will only have the disease when they receive 2 copies of the trait. Is that clear, students?
Yes, sir.
In this case, which one is recessive? S or A?
Yes.
Yes.
And which is dominant?
A.
Yes,
And
sir.
that A is what it normal is. So in this case, all of their children will have a trait for sickle cell. And this is important, right? As you get married or as you go into a relationship and start to do adult things, you want to make sure you check to make sure that you don't have a trait and the person doesn't have a trait as well. Because let's say Prince did not see his way and he chose to marry.
That's cool, sir. That is cool.
What kind of thing is that, boy?
Ah.
You remember YouTube doesn't know what that joke is, right? So good. So Prince did not see what he was doing, and he marries a girl that had a sickle cell trait just as he did. What is the possibility of their children having this disease?
50%.
Let's figure it out. Remember, the H again has no bearings on the outcome. AA, AS, AS, I'm hungry and I'm tired. When I'm hungry and I'm tired, 2 things start to happen. I start to stutter and I start to write nonsense. What's going on here, man?
Make a little sandwich and come back.
So while you are going on, you will mute your mic, go for a sandwich for 10 minutes and drink something to get a little bit of energy and come back because we need it.
Yeah, that's
You-
right now. I'll be just
you
be
need-
Monday.
You need more than just this.
I'll buy
session.
energy tomorrow.
All right, let's move on. So what are you seeing here? When somebody has a carrying, when somebody's a carrier, they have the possibility of having a child with the full-blown disease. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
I see Mr. Eastman has joined us on the YouTube channel there. Yes, yes. So can you see that there?
Yes.
So if you marry somebody, and trust me, let me tell you this. This is something I see a lot in my medical career. At the hospital, you see children, adults themselves, suffering severely because of sickle cell disease. And it's something that purely, if you are aware of it and you know, one thing on your list before you choose a partner should be genetic testing. But y'all know, he look good, she look good. We can do something. But that's not it.
Right.
There's more to it than that. Right? So put genetic testing on your list. If that family has a disease and your family also has a disease, you have no business getting into bed with that person. No business at all. Stick to what your genetics allow for you to do. And that will not be to have a relationship with that person. So let's talk about sickle cell. Carry them for, as a date.
So, but
That's exactly correct.
biology teach me about protection too.
When you are having a partner, let's say you meet somebody, if you say you're blessed to meet somebody as good looking as I am, and you're dating this person,
my dog, boy. God bless you.
A form of the date should be for you to go for genetic testing, you know? We can be spicy like that. You know you don't have a cancer gene. You know you don't have sickle cell. That means you're a possibly good genetic candidate. Right? So just factor that in your list to make sure you're choosing the right part. Very good. Let's talk about sickle cell now. Who can remind us about sickle cell? Anybody knows anything about sickle cell? Where are my students? Where are my physical students? Let's talk about sickle cell. Come on. Don't embarrass me now. What is sickle cell?
Sickle cell is basically a deformity in the red blood cell, which causes it to take on the shape of a sickle, basically.
Very good. I can work with that. Now let me go.
Genetic
Interestingly, I think it was last year exam. Last year on the live, we talked about the same thing. And when they went into the exam, there was the picture waiting for them. And I don't think many of them remembered it. But let's try to pull up a picture quickly. All right, I like this one here.
See why doing HSV? One by you have to do it. That's right.
Why am I not getting? Oh Lord, listen. I ain't able. This thing stressing me out. Give me a minute. Hold on.
So I told you I'm doing some past papers on HSV.
Y'all pay me?
No, you go suffer with that because I have biology tomorrow.
Good. Can you see the picture?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's what normal looks like. Normal is here. Normal is there, right? And abnormal is here. So and you need to remember that this is on deoxygenation. So when the red blood cell loses oxygen, this is what results, a sickled shape, right? Normal red blood cell look like that. When it takes on that sickle shape, it looks like this, right? And I'm showing you this picture here because I want to show you that the problem with sickle cell is that it can block your blood vessels. If you block the blood vessel, what happens? If blood doesn't flow, what happens?
Heart attack. Well, hypertension.
Okay, anybody else? What is supposed to be going to this blood? Okay, let's say this is a part of the heart. What does the red blood cell bring to the muscles of the heart?
Oxygen.
Nutrients.
Nutrients.
Oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. So if the blockage happens and red blood cells are not able to deliver oxygen, what happens to that tissue? What happens to that muscle? The muscle becomes hypoxic.
Dehydration.
Becomes hypoxic, right? Meaning without oxygen, right? And what happens as a result? It dies. What would this be called? So we call a myocardial infarction, big words for just simply saying a heart attack. So when a blockage happens in the blood vessels surrounding the heart, that's a heart attack. A blood clot in the heart, the vessels of the heart, leads to a heart attack. A blood clot in the vessels of the brain leads to a what? Stroke. A stroke. A blood clot in the lung. Let me see if anybody remembers this. I taught you this in school. A blood clot in the lung. A clot in the lung is what? A pulmonary embolism, right? Pulmonary embolism, blood clot in the lung, blood clot in the brain, stroke, blood clot in the heart, heart attack. Everybody clear on those things?
Yes, sir.
So anybody with sickle cell can suffer this. You may be thinking, oh, a heart attack only happens in adult people. But a child with a sickle cell crisis can have a heart attack. In fact, I saw a 1-year-old or about 18 months or something like that had a stroke, right? And all because the child was sickle cell, right? So that was very sad. And that's what I'm saying to you, be careful who you're dating and who you're doing adult things with. You don't want your children to suffer from diseases that you could have prevented if you had chosen a better partner. Right? Good. So what is this sickle cell? So sickle cell is a mutation that occurs in the gene that codes for the production of this hemoglobin. When that mutation happens, it results in this abnormally shaped red blood cell. Let's try to do a little backstory. Have you heard of the term evolution?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's a biology class, so we have to talk about evolution. But evolution involves where the gene changes with time or changes over time. Sickle cell was actually an evolutionary change that resulted from people of color or people from the African area being subjected to a disease called malaria, right? Over time, their DNA changed so they can resist the malaria parasite. So a person with sickle cell doesn't get malaria. Person doesn't get malaria, right? Why? The abnormally shaped red blood cell resists that plasmodium parasite that the malaria uses, the malaria disease uses. Right, so let me explain it again. So malaria affected persons from the tropical areas. Malaria is a vector-borne disease. Can anybody remind me what is the vector that causes malaria? What's the vector, not pathogen? The mosquito is the vector that causes malaria. And what's the pathogen? Define the word pathogen.
Disease-causing organism.
Disease-causing organism.
Disease-causing organism. What's the pathogen in malaria? Plasmodium.
Plasmodium.
Plasmodium. Right? Good. So the plasmodium parasite is spread through your mosquitoes. And over time, the body created a mutation trying to prevent this plasmodium parasite from infecting red blood cells. But in doing that, it created another problem of its own. This sickle cell that is so dangerous to people, right? So the body thought it was fixing one problem, but creates another problem, right? So oftentimes, who do you expect to see sickle cell disease in?
Woman.
People in tropical here.
Oh, I said all I just said. But y'all telling me this
No.
nonsense?
People of color?
Black people, yes, black people. Because that is where it came from, right?
Like that too.
But because
No,
people are often intermingling, you can have sickle cell presenting in other races as well, right? Because of that mixture there. But good. You understand why it's from black people being affected, because it's a mutation that occurred because of an evolutionary change. What are some signs and symptoms of sickle cell? Remember, all right, let me go back. I didn't tell you this. So because these cells are abnormally shaped, the body will try to destroy them. The liver and the spleen will try to destroy these cells. So the more and more red blood cells are destroyed, the person will present with something called what?
Anemia.
Anemia. Very good. If you have a destruction of your red blood cell, that patient presents with anemia. Very good. And what other signs you will see?
Swelling of hands and feet, sir.
Yellowing of the hands and the feet, or the skin, the eyes, and so on. Why you have that yellowing? That's called jaundice. But why you have that jaundice? Because when red blood cells are broken down, they release something called bilirubin. When the bilirubin builds up, that's what we call as jaundice, right? And if you lose red blood cells, how would that person feel? They will feel weak. So they often feel fatigued or tired all the time, or they're pale. Well, black people wouldn't see the paleness in them. But the persons who might be a little lighter, you will see that paleness, right? Because of that anemia. Right? But they generally feel that weakness and that fatigue, that tiredness, right? But most importantly, they have painful joints. Lots and lots of pain. Lots and lots of pain, painful joints. All right, good. Any questions or comments on this?
Study HSB now.
This is HSB as well, you know.
Yeah.
But
do the past paper.
You feel like everybody only doing HSB alone, boy. What's that?
All right. I don't know why people like teaching from past paper. It's not just the past paper, man. We want to understand certain concepts we know will be on the exam. Let's talk about genetic engineering quickly. So you will see something tomorrow on the exam, genetic engineering. What's happening with genetic engineering? You teach me this one. What is genetic engineering?
Modifying genetic traits of organisms.
So somebody said biotechnology techniques. Biotechnology techniques, okay. Anything else? Modifying certain characteristics to get favorable traits. Okay. Anything else? All right. So there are two things I want you to be able to talk about. I will try to be as simple as possible. The making of insulin and, well, three. BT corn, and golden rice. Make sure you can write some short notes on these things tomorrow. Golden rice and BT corn. We will talk about the golden rice and making of insulin. So let's use our knowledge on genetic engineering to show how useful it can be. So we remove the gene for insulin production. We remove the gene for insulin production and we purify that gene. All right. We want to, before we used to use insulin in the, well, let me ask you this. What is insulin?
Glucose.
Insulin is glucose.
There's a hormone that breaks down glucose.
Good. I like that. It's a hormone that breaks down glucose. Somebody add to our list. Make sure we talk about endocrine versus nervous system tonight, right? Endocrine versus nervous system diseases. Not diseases, to differentiate between those two. Nervous system versus endocrine system. Right. All right. Where are we? So insulin is a hormone that is responsible for lowering your blood glucose level, right? So if the person has a disease, what disease you have insulin being a problem in?
Stroke, sorry.
Diabetes.
Oh,
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
Diabetes. Thank you. Diabetes. Good. So in diabetes, the person has a high blood glucose level because of either a complete lack of insulin or insulin not working well. Right? So the person has a high blood glucose level. So how do we treat that? We give them insulin. All right? In the lab, we can make insulin. How do we make insulin? By genetic engineering, right? How are we doing that? So we remove the gene for the production of insulin, and we put that gene as a circular piece of DNA, or a piece of that DNA, into a bacterium called Escherichia coli, E. coli for short. And we are using E. coli because E. coli, you saw this in the past paper. Yeah, it comes a lot on past papers, right? That's why I'm doing it, right? We are using E. coli because E. coli doubles and multiplies every 15 minutes, right? That can help you in an exam. So we're incorporating that gene, that human gene, to produce insulin into this E. coli bacterium. Singular bacterium, plural bacteria. So every time that that bacterium now, that E. coli bacteria, adds that circular piece of DNA to its own gene, to its own nucleus. And every time it multiplies, what is creating now?
Insulin.
It's creating insulin. It has now the protein to produce insulin, so it's producing insulin every time it multiplies. And if it multiplies, if it doubles itself in 15 minutes, you can imagine we can quickly produce lots of insulin, which we can later remove from the bacterial cell and purify. Everybody understand how the insulin is made in a nutshell?
Close enough.
Sir, can you please go it over one more time?
No problem, I will. Right, so I'm saying to you, the protein that leads to insulin production is removed from the human nucleus, purified, and added to the DNA of this bacteria. All right. So that is incorporated into the DNA of the bacteria, the E. coli bacteria. The bacteria now multiplies. Every time the bacteria multiplies, it's producing the protein for that insulin production. All right? That insulin now is removed from the bacterial cell, purified, And that's what we know as our commercial insulin. Are we there?
Yes, sir.
Of course, there's much more. There's much more to this. I'm trying to be as simple as possible. The night before the exam, we can discuss all the possibilities, right? Golden rice. So oftentimes people have a vitamin A deficiency, right? But scientists have figured out a way to add the gene for the production of vitamin A into rice. Rice is something that everybody has access to, right? And if you have access to rice, if we can add this gene that produces vitamin A to rice, then every time the rice is produced, the rice also has what in it?
Vitamin A.
Vitamin A. Is where do you know we get vitamin A from?
Milk.
Milk? Your carrots, your pumpkin, those things, right? Right. So your vitamin A is not a component of rice. Rice is starch, right? But because rice is so abundant, scientists have decided that they're going to experiment with this rice and add vitamin A to it. So when we add vitamin A to rice, we call it golden rice. That's a genetic engineering practice. And because rice is so accessible, we will fix the world's problem with vitamin A. And what vitamin A usually causes a deficiency of? A deficiency of vitamin A usually results in what?
Night blindness.
Night blindness, very good. Night blindness, right? And while we're on the concept of vitamin A, let's talk about your other water-soluble and fat-soluble vitamins. So the acronym ADEC helps you to remember what?
Fat-soluble vitamins.
Your fat-soluble vitamins. What does that mean? These are vitamins that dissolve in the fat, right? A, D, E, and K. And B and C are your water-soluble vitamins. What does that mean? Excess amount of these vitamins will be passed out in urine, while these vitamins here will be stored in fat because they're soluble to fat. Is that clear?
So B and C come like water soluble, and A, D, E, and K is like fat soluble.
Yes, that's what I just said.
So is B and C got to the bottom?
Yes, B and C, A, D, E, and K at the top. Any questions? Any comments here? A deficiency in vitamin C results in what?
Scurvy.
Scurvy. And what's really scurvy? What happens in scurvy?
Your teeth on.
Now your teeth is the gum, really. The gums bleed. Not just the gums, but all parts of your body where you had healing taking place can start bleeding. Right? But you usually start to bleed from all your mucous membranes, your eyes, your nose, your ears, the gums, all over where your mucous membranes are. You can start bleeding from that. That's scurvy, right? Vitamin K plays a very important role in blood clotting. Vitamin E, very important in your immunity, immune function. Vitamin D is responsible for what? Allowing the body to store calcium, so they're responsible for your bone and your teeth health. Vitamin A, we know, is night blindness. Vitamin B, very important in your metabolism, regulating your body's metabolism. All right, good. Any questions? Any comments?
Sir, vitamin D important for malleable.
Sorry?
Sir, isn't vitamin D important for manhood?
Manlyhood?
Yes, sir.
I know what you're trying to get me to say, all right? But let's look at the past paper. Hopefully we can get a few questions brought out in the past paper. As we see the topics, we are going to talk about them a little bit. Diabetes. Let's talk about diabetes a little bit because that's something that you should definitely know. The exam likes to bring that. So let's talk about that and I'll queue up the past paper. Tutorials. I sent 2024 January. You're gonna look at that one and 2020 January. You know, look at that one as well. Good. So let's talk about diabetes. What is diabetes? Diabetes is a disease that is characterized, meaning it has high. What about the diagrams for the exam? So they're going to bring a diagram. There will be at least one picture, one drawing that you have to do or label. They haven't brought the labeling part of it in recent times, but there'll be at least one drawing that you have to do. Sometimes it's a simple drawing. Like for example, 2 years ago, they asked to draw and label a red blood cell versus a white blood cell. They can ask you to draw something like the eye and label. They can ask you to draw something like the skin and label. So you have to be able to identify. I can't guess what's gonna come. And sometimes they might tell you bring a single drawing, right? So let's see what happens. But make sure we talk about endocrine. Make sure we talk about long and short sightedness as well. That's something that can come on the exam. So before we leave, make sure we talk about those things, right? I hope somebody's taking notes because it's up to you to remind me to talk about it. I will forget. So yeah, we said diabetes is characterized by high blood glucose levels. So your blood sugar is high. That's what that means. High blood sugar, right? And why is the blood sugar level high? Because insulin is either absent completely or not working. So there's either insulin resistance or insulin absence, all right? And let's talk about that, and you will see why I'm saying either of these two things. So there are two types of diabetes, two main types. There is type 1, and then there's type 2. In type 1 diabetes, there is a destruction of the beta cells of the pancreas. Anybody know what the beta cells of the pancreas do?
Produce insulin.
Very good. They produce insulin. So if the beta cells are destroyed of the pancreas, what do you think will happen?
No insulin will be produced.
No insulin, right? And type 2 diabetes, what happens in type 2 diabetes? The person is fat or obese or anything else you want to put there, right? And adipose tissue or fat cells prevent insulin from working. And if they prevent insulin from working, what do you think the body will do? If your body realizes that you are not producing enough insulin, no, sorry, let me rephrase that. If the body thinks that the insulin is not working, what do you think the body will do?
Start producing insulin.
Produce more.
Produce more, exactly. Produce more and more and more until what happens?
It burns out.
Burns out.
The cells of the pancreas burn out. So they are tired. They can't produce any more insulin, or the insulin they're producing is not sufficient. So the type 2 often results in the same situation as type 1. But in type 1, remember, there's very little beta cells, right? In type 2, the problem was what? Fat cells. That the insulin was now working. So which of these do you think exercise will play a role in? Which one we can fix with exercise?
Type 2.
Type 2.
Why? Because if we decrease the fat cells, we increase the way insulin works.
Yes.
All right? Good. So good. That's type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Let's talk now about the signs and symptoms. What are we going to see? Signs and symptoms. What's a sign? What's a symptom? A sign is what we will see or what we can observe, and the symptom is what the person feels, right? The sign is what we see, the symptom is what the person feels. So signs and symptoms of diabetes, there are 3 main categories of them. What are they?
Sweating, sir.
My God, that's not one. Polydipsia, polyphagia, and poly. You're just repeating what he's saying. Polyuria. Polyphagia, polydipsia, polyuria. What does this mean? Big words is just say frequent urination, and you can write exactly that. Frequent urination, frequent hunger, and frequent thirst. Yes. These are the 3 main signs of diabetes. Again, what are they?
Frequent urination, frequent hunger, and frequent thirst.
Good. And let's talk about the other things now. There's headache, there's weight loss, there's frequent infections. Those are other signs and symptoms that we can also observe, right? But the main things we're going to see, polydipsia, polyphagia, polyuria. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
So is there a case where ants follow in your urine when you pee?
So he's asking if ants will fall, if it will be a sign of diabetes if the ants is following your urine when you pee. Can somebody tell Sherlock why the ants follow in the urine?
Because of the sweet?
Sugar.
Because you're peeing out the urine. Why do you think you're urinating frequently?
Sugar.
The polyuria is coming because of all of that sugar. Oh, make sure we talk about the nephron too, right? Make sure we talk about the nephron and urine formation too, right? I hope y'all taking a list of these things. This can be a drawing question in the exam tomorrow. The nephron and urine formation, right? Right. So the polyuria, you're peeing out, your body is trying to pee out all of the sugar there. So that's why you have that frequent urination. You feel hungry often because the body is thinking that you don't have enough glucose. So the body is saying, go eat more. So the problem is not the glucose. The problem is the body is not getting that glucose into the cells. And polydipsia, if your blood is sweet, you're going to drink enough water. So you have a thirst, right? Ensure get vitamin A. Yes, Ensure have vitamin E. I don't know what's wrong with this boy and vitamin E. Anyway, good. Let's talk about treatment and prevention now. Treatment and prevention. So treatment, how do we treat diabetes? Now there's medical management. You can have tablets in the case of type 2 or insulin in the case of type 1. Some type 1 diabetics also require insulin when the oral medication is not working, right? But tablets, insulin. If you want to know the name of the tablet, metformin. Don't say metformin. Oh, jeez, I write metformin. Oh, God. Metformin. Y'all wanted to say metformin, but it's not metformin. It's metformin. All right. But how do we prevent it? We have learned enough already to tell me how to prevent it. And this is not only for diabetes. It's the same prevention for everything else. Diet, balanced diet, and exercise. Balanced diet involves foods from all the different food groups
in the correct portion.
Correct proportions. Very good. Food from all the food groups in correct proportions. Now, what is the kind of exercise we expect?
Physical.
Well, all exercise is physical. But what exercise are we talking about? We want to hear
weight loss.
Exercise allows you to at least 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week to sweat. Sweat. You have to get your heart rate up, right? 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, right?
Excuse me, sir. In a case of type 1, right? When there is no insulin, is that where genetic engineering comes in? Where they would remove the insulin?
No, you're not removing it. Remember, the genetic engineering is where we are using the DNA for insulin production and making that insulin, right? That's already happened. We are not doing it when this person is diabetic. This is something we already do. We already have this insulin. If the person becomes type 1 diabetic, we already have the insulin to give them. It's not a case where we have to check them to make sure it's their insulin that we are giving them back. No, we are making insulin because we know that this is what the insulin is in humans. You guys know what I'm saying? But yeah, genetic engineering comes in that way.
Yes, sir.
What else from diabetes I want to mention? Oh, because the sugar, the problem with diabetes is that sugar is in all. All right, let's go back a little bit. We started by saying in diabetes, there's a high blood glucose level. That high blood glucose level affects all organs of the body. All organs, right? Oh my. I don't know what happened there. They affect all organs of the body, right? And because it affects all the organs of the body, you can have problems with every single part of your body. So the complications of diabetes, and you must know this can come in your exam. Complication of diabetes, blindness, right? This is something called retinopathy, right? So the retina of the eye goes bad because it can't handle all of that sugar. Nephropathy, big word to just say kidney failure. If I tell you every day I see this at the hospital, kidney failure, right? Then there is neuropathy, right? So this is big words to say the nerves are no longer working. I have a patient right now on the ward. He had 2 of his toes amputated, and his possibly in a few days he will get his leg amputated. Why? So apparently I tell you all my whole story. So apparently rat does bite his foot when he's sleeping.
What?
So ask me I live in, but the rat does bite his foot when
he has sweet foot.
And why you think the rat might bite his foot? Because it's diabetes.
Diabetes.
Because it's diabetes. Anyway, so it became infected, right? But he never knew the rat was biting his foot until somebody said they saw the rat biting his foot. I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
So he see the rat?
He never know rat does bite his foot until somebody else see rat does bite his foot.
So then he thought it was.
Well, he probably did. He probably never knew. You see the problem with diabetes, because the nerves go bad. Somebody can be nibbling at your feet. You can be stuck with a needle. You're stuck with a nail and you don't know. The nerves are responsible for feeling and sensation, right? If the nerves go bad, you don't feel. So he might have never felt the rat nibbling at his foot. He might step on a nail and you never know. And what happens as a result? It becomes infected. And when it becomes infected, the risk of spread of that infection exists. And that can cause him his entire life, right? In fact, if he doesn't cut the foot off, that sepsis can spread and kill him. So that's where neuropathy comes in. The heart can be affected, and a person with diabetes often dies from a heart attack. A person with diabetes often die from a heart attack, or they can die from a stroke. Right? So those are some complications of diabetes. They can ask you that in the exam. Blindness, kidney failure, neuropathy, where the nerves don't work, or they get amputations because the nerves don't work. They have to cut off the limbs on the feet or the digits. Heart attack, stroke. Those are all complications of diabetes. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
These complications are the same for hypertension as well. They are the same for atherosclerosis as well, right? They're the same complication, right? Good. So let's go to the past paper now. Good. See our friends on YouTube. Everybody on YouTube is good. Question, comments. Come on, like the YouTube video. Let's try and show this here. How do you show? Oh, I gotta do this. Hold on. I feel like an old person, you know, not able to use technology very well. All right, good. Yeah, we have to do endocrine versus nervous. Don't forget that. Let's do this paper from the back quickly. This thing annoying me. It's definitely fun because we can skip through some questions, right? So we can't answer everything, right? But the main concept we're gonna touch. Right? Good. So let's go. Want to read that question here for us?
Roy
Roy
and
and his friends visit a new roti shop in the neighborhood and purchase roti, flatbread made of wheat flour, water and oil, and chicken curry. Dining was not permitted on the premises, so they went to Roy's home and ate the roti and chicken curry there. Name two substances that are produced each of the following stages digested.
So when the food is digested, when we digest the roti, what substances are produced? When they're asking you when you break down it, what do you get? When you break down flour-based products, what do you get from that?
Starch.
Starch.
No,
Carbohydrate.
carbohydrate. That's a nutrient, right? The starch is the group. The food, that roti, the flour-based product, the plantain, the gram provision, all are starch. But the nutrient we get from it is carbohydrate, right? And what nutrient we get from chicken when we break that down?
What?
No,
Protein.
man.
Amino acids.
Protein. Yes, there is some fat there, but you gotta mention protein. Good. So that's that. So You see, diabetes right off the bat. They're going to bring this tomorrow. You can't doubt that at all. It's going to be there. So, diabetes, Roy is diabetic, but he enjoys his roti and curry. So he has 2 portions daily. Say 2 dietary changes that Roy should do to manage his diabetes. Mind you, they say dietary changes. So what can he do to manage his diabetes with his diet? Talk to me.
Limit the number of roti see.
Should cut down on his carbohydrates intake.
Yes.
Intakes of less fatty, of less fat.
Reduce the amount of carbs he takes in, or at least reduce it at one time. Can't take in too much of the carbs at one time, right? So reduce the carbohydrate intake, reduce the fat intake as well. That's another way of reducing this, or having the effects of diabetes being controlled, right? So is there another thing we can do? Dietary changes. What else can he do to manage the diabetes? Come on, think. So carbs are going to add sugar. What might decrease his blood sugar raising? What might he consume that will decrease the blood sugar raising?
Sir, water.
Water, oh God. No, not water.
Sir, vegetables?
Vegetables, very good. If he increases his amount of vegetables, that will lead to what? So vegetables have something called roughage
No
or
sugar.
cellulose or fiber. He will feel fuller for longer, right? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Good. So feeling fuller for longer is going to prevent him from eating more, right? So that's a positive consequence, a positive gain from that. Is there anything else you can tell me about? Somebody said drinking more water. Yeah, drinking water is always going to be good, right? Is there anything else you can include here as a dietary change? So we cut down on the amount of the portion that he eats at one time, right? We increase more fruits and vegetables, not just vegetables, but fruits as well. And something you should learn, this is not exam purpose, but for life. Drinking the food, drinking the juice, the fruit juice, actually will be more sugar than eating the fruit, right? So don't think, oh, you're drinking a smoothie and that is healthy. The smoothie actually has more freed up sugar than you would have when you eat the fruit, right? That's a little word for the wise. Good. And the consequence doesn't have to be something totally negative, but something you can also be positive as well. Right? Good. Any other questions or comments there? No? Good. So this one is talking about testing for starch. When you're testing for starch, what color do you observe when starch is present?
Yellow.
Blue, purple.
Blue, black.
Black color.
Black, blue, sir, black, blue.
Black, blue. There's no black.
Black,
Blue, black. Blue, black. A very dark blue, black color, right? One starch is present, you see a blue, black color. If starch is not present, you will see a brown color. Why would you see a brown color? Why would you see a brown color?
That's the color of the iodine.
Iodine, sir. Because iodine has a brown color. So the brown color takes on. The color you see, that brown color, is because of the iodine. Right? Good. And you know photosynthesis can come on the exam. What is photosynthesis?
Process by which green plants produce their own food.
Green plants are making food. They're making food by using carbon dioxide and water.
Substance, water, carbon dioxide.
In the presence of sunlight and chlorine.
carbon dioxide and water they're using to produce glucose and oxygen, right? That's your equation. Your equation could be a balanced chemical equation or a word equation. Biology exam often asks you for the for the balanced chemical equation. HSB often asks for the word equation, but you should know both of them for each. How does water move up the plant? So you have vascular bundles. Your vascular bundles comprise of what and what?
Xylem and phloem.
Xylem and phloem vessels. Your xylem vessels are dead tubes that transport water and minerals, right? And your phloem vessels are living cells that transport what? Manufactured food, right? So your manufactured food, in this case, would be what? From photosynthesis.
Glucose.
Explain why the rate of photosynthesis decreases on a very hot day. Very hot day. That's your hint. Very hot day. Why would it? Do you expect the rate of photosynthesis to increase in a lot of sunshine? Yes or no?
Sorry, but no.
Yes, sir.
No. Yeah.
Yes, you would expect the photosynthesis would increase with a lot of sunshine. But on a very hot day, why would you think photosynthesis might decrease? See when everybody is thinking.
So the
Too
high
much sunlight.
sunlight,
planting get
high
wilted,
temperature,
sir.
the
Plant
high
get wilted.
temperature going to nature the enzymes needed to make photosynthesis happen.
Okay, I like the way you're thinking.
This tomato go close.
Tomato will close, okay.
The water in the plant, it will carry photosynthesis because the water in the plant. The plant need the water to survive. And if carry photosynthesis, the plant will dehydrate.
All right, so we're having some bits and pieces of the answer. Good. There are several things you can talk about here. One, if the stomata opens, the stomata is supposed to take in what? What's the stomata taking in?
Sunlight.
Breeze.
Sorry,
Carbon
stomata is
dioxide.
taking in sunlight.
I mean carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide.
Oh my God. The stomata is supposed to take in your carbon dioxide, right? If you keep that stomata open, what will be lost on that very hot day? Water.
Water.
Don't you need water for photosynthesis?
Yeah.
If you're losing water, are you gonna get water to do this process? No. Right? So very hard. That will be effective. What's the role of chlorophyll? What does chlorophyll do?
Chlorophyll is a green pigment that is made the leaves green of the plant.
Oh God.
Trap the sunlight.
You know.
It traps the sunlight. So what is similar to chlorophyll in humans or animals?
The skin, the melanin in the skin.
Melanin. Very good. Melanin. Right. So melanin is to animals, while chlorophyll is to plants. Right. Green pigment, brown pigment. Right. And what the chlorophyll does is trap sunlight and allows for that light energy to be converted.
I was possibly correct. I was kind of correct, although I was wrong. But like,
the chemical energy is going to be used now to split the water molecules and the carbon dioxide molecules to produce glucose and oxygen. Right? Say 2 ways in which photosynthesis is important in living things. Tell me.
So photosynthesis is important because it produces oxygen as a byproduct, and we need oxygen. All living things need oxygen to breathe and survive.
Living things need oxygen, so glucose, the photosynthesis produce oxygen. What else? What's the next thing in the equation?
The absorption of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
That's very good. That's a very good answer. So it also helps to remove carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which can be a dangerous greenhouse gas, right? Good. And that greenhouse gas often leads to what?
The destruction of the ozone layer.
Rising of sea level.
Global warming, right? Good. All right. So, and don't forget the other thing. Glucose is being produced. That glucose is what we rely on when we eat plants, right? That's where we get our energy from. Good. So your carbon cycle can come. This came in January, might not come back again. But the only process that removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is what? So what's two? What's two there? Photosynthesis. And what is adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere? What is this one here? What's three going to be?
Combustion.
Combustion. Very good. And what is four going to be?
Organic waste.
Respiration. That's respiration.
Oh, respiration.
What is five going to be?
Decomposition.
Okay. Anybody else? And what is six going to be?
Organic waste.
That's decay.
Right. Decaying organic matter. One reason why carbon is important in living tissue. In fact, a lot of the great proportion of our body is made up of carbon, right? So why is carbon important? Carbon forms a very, very important backbone of the DNA structure, right? Anything else you can think about there? You had a whole cycle there to help you. Reusing, reducing, and recycling. What these words mean? Recycle means to
Use back something instead of throwing it away.
Sure about that? What does reuse there for me?
Well,
No, recycle
you just use back a material for the same reason you used it before.
What's that?
Reuse.
Okay, yes, we're using the same material. So you're using that same material for the same reason again and again and again. And recycling means what?
Reusing the material for a different purpose.
Using the same material for different reasons or different things. And what reducing means?
Useless.
Lives in smaller amounts. Like
nice
to conserve and preserve.
Yes, we okay with that. Daisy, the late read that one there for me, the question for me.
Daisy, the latest disassembly robot from Apple, is able to recover aluminum, gold, silver, copper, and other metals from iPhone devices. Suggest two advantages of recycling metals from iPhones.
Why would you want to recycle the metals from the iPhone?
Cheaper.
The metal waste is harming the environment as it cannot be decomposed.
Very good. So that's non-biodegradable. So that's harmful to the environment. Good. Anything else?
Sorry, mining process does release a lot of CO2 emissions that could harm the atmosphere.
Very good. The production of those things require a lot of
combustion,
carbon dioxide, and other greenhouse gases. So that's harmful to the environment. So if you can just reuse it rather than producing more, it will be safe. Very good, Trevor. Good. Two ways in which recycling of a tree after cutting it down can be beneficial to a community. First of all, we understand the importance of trees in the ecosystem, right? Do we understand the importance of trees?
Yes, sir.
So remember, trees are the only natural process that removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So if you have a carbon problem and you plant more trees, what are you going to do with that?
Reduce carbon in the air, in the atmosphere.
Carbon in the atmosphere, right? And not just when it removes carbon, it also adds what?
Oxygen.
Yeah.
So what's transpiration?
The evaporation of water at the
I don't want to
utmost.
hear the word evaporation. It's the release of water from the leaves, right? Evaporation is a different term by itself. Evaporation happens from a body of water because heat is exposed to that water. The water move from liquid to gas. That's evaporation. Transpiration is different. Transpiration is the loss of water through
the leaves.
The leaves, right? Good. 2 reasons why transpiration is important. What do you think? You think the plant needs to be cooled down?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Right. And 3 other factors other than temperature that can affect the rate of transpiration. What is humidity? What is humidity?
The presence of water vapor in the atmosphere.
The amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. So if you have more water vapor in the atmosphere, would you have more transpiration or less transpiration?
Less.
You have less, right? So that humidity can also affect the amount of water vapor in the amount of transpiration that's going to go on.
Sir, can the amount of water present in the soil be a problem?
A problem or be a factor?
Can it be a
yes,
factor?
It can be a factor as well. Right? Explain one way in which is plotting a graph going to come. We explained plotting a graph is going to come. So you're not asked about that. Graph will always be on the science exams. Right? There was a year where it didn't come though, but it's gonna be there more likely. Explain one way in which climate change can negatively impact agricultural sector in the Caribbean. So what's climate change? Or let's talk about global warming. What's global warming? So you have an increase in the global temperature. Why is there an increase in the global temperature? Because you have an increased presence of these greenhouse gas that's trapping heat. The more and more heat they trap, the hotter the climate gets. The hotter the climate gets, the increase in the global temperature results. So that's global warming. How can that climate change affect the agricultural sector? So we used to have rainy season in May, June, and November, December. But with climate change, rain can come anytime, drought can come anytime. So what do you think is going to happen with the agricultural sector if you have a drought?
The alteration of the climate could like decrease the survival rate of the plants.
I'm giving you the answer there just now, Droughts affect your agricultural produce. So can you have, if you're planting a cash crop, vegetables, can you plant vegetables in a drought?
No, sir.
No.
Right? So that's a thing there. And can you give me any other? So what are you telling me about there? Let me hear what you're saying.
Sure, like the changing in the weather patterns can reduce the survival rate of plants.
Yes,
like
definitely.
in rainy seasons with flooding.
Yes. Flooding also, if you have more flooding happening, obviously that's not going to be helpful to your agricultural produce. It's just one way in which countries can slow down the effects of climate change. What can countries do?
So they
We
could
spoke about
utilize,
this.
they could utilize their alternative source of energy. So
Yep,
like
they can reduce the use of fossil fuel, use more alternative sources of energy. They can decrease the amount of trees being cut down. They can put a quota on the amount of trees being cut down. They can plant more trees. So many things we can talk about here, right? Look at this beautiful question here. Define gene, define allele, define chromosome. Do we need to go back to that again?
No, sir.
All right, good. So let's talk about mitosis and meiosis. Since this question here came, let me use the opportunity to teach you mitosis and meiosis. So let's put a table. This first bit is going to be mitosis. And this other bit is going to be meiosis. Let's compare the two. Mitosis occurs where?
Somatic cells.
Yep. Body cells or somatic cells. Occurs in body cells or somatic cells. Meiosis only occurs in germ cells or sex cells. Right? Very good. Mitosis has a diploid number of chromosomes, while your meiosis has a haploid number of chromosomes. Mitosis, give me another difference or similarity.
No variation, no variation.
No variation.
Very good. Mitosis has no variation. Meiosis, variation. Right? Variation is C. Good. Can you give me another? Come on, we talked about several of these before in class. Can you give me others?
Meiosis is unidentical and mitosis is identical.
Right, well, that's variation and no variation as well, but we're going to put it, right, on identical offspring or daughter cells, identical daughter cells. That's what we mean when we say variation and no variation, right? Anything else you can think about?
Both plants and animals.
Mitosis really is asexual reproduction, really, and meiosis involves sexual reproduction. Right? Good. Anything else?
Sir, can meiosis put have four daughter cells?
Yep, that's very good. So in meiosis, there are two crossings. So there are two divisions. And that two division produce four daughter cells. Mitosis, one division, two daughter cells each. Right? So that's a lot of similar differences between the two. Everybody's there with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments? Good. So you have to know the processes of mitosis and meiosis. You have to be able to draw and talk about the different stages. So this diagram here, this question here from January 2024 is talking about meiosis, right? So of all the processes, you have to know, what am I doing? You have to know the acronym PMAT. Yeah? PMAT. P stands for what?
Prophase.
Prophase.
Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Good. So you should know what's happening with each of these stages here. What's happening in prophase?
Chickens. Comes in from chickens.
Metaphase, M for middle, M for metaphase. What's happening there? They align in the middle of the cell. What do we call the middle of the cell?
Yes.
Equator. What happened? Was it A? Was it A there?
Anaphase.
Anaphase. What happens? The anaphase? Yeah, they move away. Good. And telophase?
They separate.
Completely to the opposite side of the poles.
And then cytokinesis will be what?
When a new
Cytokinesis is just the replication of the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm replicates to finish that process. That is cytokinesis. Okay? And we see this question here, we spoke about this before. Suggest one reason why genetic variation is important in speciation. Why is genetic variation important? So if you have one organism being affected by a particular disease, if that organism goes on to transfer its genetic material identically, then all the offspring that it produces will also be able to be affected by that disease. So an entire species can be wiped out because of that. When you have variation, and that's why you have meiosis is so important. When you have variation, that decreases the possibility by half of that wiping out happening, right? The exam likes to ask you about causes of variation. What are some causes of variation? Mutation, cause of genetic variation, and crossing over. Remember those two, right? Cause of genetic variation, mutation, and crossing over. Remember that? They like to ask about that. Good. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to work this question here, and then we will do it together. Oh, it's a pea plant, so shouldn't be too hard. Easy question, straightforward question. Do it for me quickly. All right, it's finished.
Yes, sir.
All right, so define the alleles. I'm not sure if they're asking for you to define the word allele, but they're asking for the alleles in question here. All right, so let's take it as though they're asking you to say what the alleles in question are. So, what are the alleles we're dealing with here? One is a purebred pea plant, right? A tall purebred. What does that tell you? Purebred tells you what?
A dominant.
Homozygous dominant.
Homozygous dominance. Very good. Very good. Right? And then we have on the other side, what?
Homozygous recessive.
Homozygous recessive. Because they say another pea plant. Right? Homozygous recessive. So, what's the parent's phenotype? One will be tall,
and one will be short.
and one will be short, right? And the genotype?
Homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive.
And then you do the cross now to show the same thing. And they say all the offspring are the same, right? Didn't they hint to that? All organisms have the same phenotype. So that's the only way that all of them will have the same phenotype, because they're all heterozygous. But you see that?
Yes.
Simple question, how much marks? 7 marks. Easy 7 marks, huh? All right, so this is the skin. The skin. Oh, I wanted to talk about this word homeostasis. So I'm happy I saw it back here. And the kidneys coming in here as well. So we're going to talk about urine formation. Good. So the past is helping us to bring all the topics we want to talk about. So that's good. All right, so let's talk about the skin quickly. The human skin is responsible for regulating temperature. State one other function of the skin. What else the skin does?
It functions as an excretory organ as well for sweat and urea.
Okay, I like that, but give me another one.
Protection.
Protection. Very good. Protection in the sense of what? Immunity, right? Yep. It protects your inner parts of your body from pathogens and diseases on the outer side. Right? Very good. So let's talk about the skin. Read an expression there for us. Somebody?
So we can't really see it.
My gosh. These towers for the years of hiding.
The human, which question? John took his temperature in the morning and it was normal. At midday, while gardening, he took his temperature again and it was not also normal. John is surprised that his temperature remained normal despite being in the sun all afternoon. Explain 2 ways in which 2 different structures in John's skin functioned to regulate his body temperature while he was gardening.
So we talked about this in class before. Tell me some things that the skin does to regulate temperature. Structures. So we have the hair, we have the blood vessels. Anything else?
Capillaries.
Blood vessels.
The gland.
The gland. Piloerector muscles.
Piloerector muscles. Good. So tell us what happened now. So during the day, what am I saying during the day? Tell us how sweating and tell us how blood vessels allow for the maintaining of normal temperature or maintaining homeostasis.
So when the place is hot, the blood vessels will dilate to allow for blood flow to pass out the heat, and the hair follicles will lie flat to allow the whole this pore in the skin to for heat to escape.
Okay, good. And somebody else, tell me the reverse now. Not in this case here, but what happens in the reverse? Let's say the place is too cold. How would you want to lose heat when the place is cold? Or you want to
Sir,
preserve?
the blood vessels constrict to keep heat inside the body, and the piloerector muscles contract so the hair stands up and it prevents heat loss through the skin.
Very good, Gopal. Good. Right, so you want to talk about the piloerector muscle when you talk about the hair follicle, right? You want to make sure you talk about that piloerector muscle. When the muscle contracts, what happens? When the muscle relaxes, what happens? If the blood vessels are going to dilate, it means more blood will be going to the skin, therefore more heat will be lost if the blood has the heat, right? If the blood vessels constrict, it means less blood is going there, so less heat will be lost, right? Good. That's a 4-mark question here. Next question, somebody read that one there for us.
John is a Caucasian and her husband, Anthony, is African American. They recently returned from a vacation in the Caribbean. While they both applied sunscreen daily, John was a bit more cautious and, unlike her husband, frequently reapplied her sunscreen during the day. Explain one reason why Jan needed to be more cautious than her husband and why she frequently reapplied sunscreen.
This is a nice question that when you look at it, you smile and you say, God is good. Eh? So a black woman marry a black man marry a white woman, right? What's the differences between these two races?
Black man will have melanin and the female will have none, but little melanin.
All right. So melanin is the protective mechanism that God bless us with from the sunlight. Right? So the God's favorite people will have a lot of it. So for example, you see when God saw me, he was like, you know what? This is my favorite. I'm gonna put a lot of melanin in him. Hence I look the way I look. Blessed. Right? Be for blessed. All right, good. So more melanin, more protection from the sun's rays. Less melanin, less protection from the sun's rays. So who needs a sunscreen?
The Caucasian woman.
Right.
So I feel in this case, they use Caucasian for a reason, and not white.
Hello,
There's the right term.
They just don't want to offend anybody. We gonna say black and white in this class. It's fine. Right. But the black man walking around with this black skin, there is enough protection. Right? So let's talk a little about the role of the skin and what it does in helping development of strong bones and teeth. Right? So vitamin D is responsible for the body being able to convert and use calcium, right? So the more you are able to trap sunlight, or the more sunlight that touches your skin when you're dark, is the more you're able to absorb vitamin D or make vitamin D from the skin, and the more you're able to store calcium. The white people don't have that privilege, so they have to expose themselves to sun for a long period of time to make enough vitamin, or for the skin to make enough vitamin D that you will make in just being in the sun for 5 to 10 minutes a day. Right? So why you think white persons are more prone to have osteoporosis? Can you answer that question based on what I just told you?
Because they don't have melanin in their skin.
Because of the little melanin. The little melanin. Sorry, I'm distracted. Yeah, because the little melanin, it means that there's not enough trapping of, there's not enough making of vitamin D, and therefore not enough trapping of calcium. So their bones are not developed the way they should be developed had they had vitamin D, right? So they're prone to breaks and so on, right? Good. Question, comments, clarifications? No? All right, what's homeostasis? Define the term homeostasis.
Homeostasis is the body's ability to maintain a constant internal environment.
Process, right? You must say process. Homeostasis is the process by which the body regulates a constant internal environment. Good. So there are several processes by the body that the body uses to maintain a constant internal environment. Several processes. The body regulates blood glucose level through homeostasis. The body regulates temperature through homeostasis. The body regulates endocrine functions through homeostasis, right? So endocrine, I'm going to say. Body regulates thyroid hormone through homeostasis, right? So talking about the kidneys now, how the kidneys function to maintain a homeostasis in terms of bodily fluid? That's a good question. Anybody wants to factor that in for me? When we talk about the kidneys, what role do the kidneys play in maintaining homeostasis of body fluids?
Sorry, it filters the blood and like.
Hello, hey. Read the question.
The kidney is responsible for maintaining homeostasis, described with reference to a named hormone, how the kidney achieves homeostasis on a hot day.
The hint here is you have to name a hormone and it's on a hot day. That's your hint. So anybody can tell me what hormone you're thinking about here?
Antidiuretic hormone.
ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Good. And let's talk about that now. Which part of the kidneys which part of the nephron does ADH act on? Which part of the nephron is the ADH act on?
The distal convoluted tubule.
Good, distal convoluted tubule. Right, and what does that do? When ADH is released, what does that cause?
The reabsorption of water.
Very good. So when ADH is released, water is reabsorbed. The more water is reabsorbed, the more the urine will be concentrated or less concentrated. What do you think? If you have more water being reabsorbed, would that result in more urine or less urine?
Yes.
Less urine.
Right? Less urine, would that be more concentrated or less concentrated?
More concentrated.
More concentrated.
More concentrated. More concentrated and less, right? Good. Good. So let's talk about it again. ADH is released on this hot day. Would you want to pee a lot or pee less?
Less.
Pee less.
Body would want you to pee less to keep back more water to prevent dehydration. So how does the body work by doing that?
Release
Body
ADH.
will release more ADH. Which part does the ADH come from? Which part of the brain?
Yeah.
Pituitary gland.
Which part of it? There's only two parts of the pituitary gland: the anterior and the posterior.
The
front part and the back part.
posterior.
Which part?
Posterior.
posterior pituitary release ADH. What other hormone comes from the posterior pituitary? Oxytocin. Yeah. So the posterior pituitary release ADH. ADH goes to act on the distal convoluted tubule. Distal convoluted tubule will reabsorb more water. The more water reabsorbed, it means the less water will be released in the urine. Therefore, the urine will be more concentrated. Right? What happens on a cold day now? Would you have more ADH or less ADH?
Less ADH.
You have less.
Less ADH. And tell me now, what's the role of alcohol? So this question can come again. I know they talk about alcohol. What does alcohol do?
Alcohol does prohibit ADH.
Inhibits. So alcohol inhibits ADH function. So ADH basically doesn't work in the presence of alcohol. That's why you would find the persons who are drinking rum or drinking alcohol often urinate a lot, because the more alcohol they drink, the more they urinate, and that's simply because ADH is not working. Right? ADH doesn't work in the presence of alcohol, so urination will happen a lot of it. Good. So somebody had hypertension. We talked about this. Complications of hypertension, kidney failure. We spoke about this a few minutes ago. Suggest 2 consequences that he can have as a result of kidney failure. I'll be happy to hear this. I want to see who remembers this. We talked about this past months ago. What are some roles of the kidneys? That's basically what the question is asking, essentially. What are some of the functions of the kidney?
Reabsorption of glucose.
What's that?
Reabsorption of glucose.
I was hoping you change your answer, because you're shouting the thing that's not a function of the kidney. That is something the kidney does, but that's not a function of the kidney.
Start filters blood.
Filters the blood, yes. The kidney filters blood, remove toxin. What's the toxin that the kidney tries to get rid of?
Urea.
Hence the word urine, because urea is being excreted. Good. That's fair. What else the kidney does now? Regulates fluid, right? The amount of fluid in the body, the kidney also plays a role in regulating that. What else? If I tell you somebody with kidney failure is anemic, what do you tell me? Why? Why is a person with kidney failure oftentimes have anemia?
Because the blood is not filtering.
Boy, stop. If you don't know the answer, shut up. There's a specific thing. If you don't remember, zip your mouth. Don't talk nonsense. Anybody remembers?
Because the blood is lost through the urine.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I want some hot lash.
A red blood cell?
The kidney produces something called erythropoietin. Spell wrong. Erythropoietin. And erythropoietin does what? Cause production of red blood cells. So If the kidneys have this important role to release this thing, erythropoietin, which will cause the production of red blood cell, when the kidney is going bad, no erythropoietin, so therefore what? Anemia. Everybody understands that?
No, sorry, could you just say again, please?
Say, could you just repeat it, please?
The kidney produces a precursor for the production of red blood cell. The precursor is erythropoietin. So this is let's say it's like something that needs to be present for the body to produce red blood cell. So the kidney produces this erythropoietin substance, right? In example, you can just write poietin. But if you remember the word erythropoietin, you can remember coming from erythrocyte, right? So when the kidneys are bad, therefore it means the kidney is not producing erythropoietin. If the kidney is not producing erythropoietin, then it will not be producing red blood cells. So persons with kidney failure can oftentimes become anemic, and you understand why. But is there?
Yes, sir.
So two cons, yeah. So two consequences of the kidney kidney failing. One, the toxins will be building up in the blood. So urea builds up in the blood. When urea builds up in the blood, everything goes haywire. Right? It can affect the brain, the skin, itching, vomiting, diarrhea. In a few days, if this is not corrected, the person dies. Right? If the kidney fails, is there a way we can help the person to get rid of urea?
Yes, sir.
If the kidney fails, is there a way we can help the person with this? What is that? What do we call that?
For dialysis?
Dialysis. Very good. Dialysis. All right? Good. So just one way in which James could avoid developing kidney failure. So you remember they said he was hypertensive, right? What can he do to prevent developing kidney failure? Think about it. You don't have to know any big fancy thing. Just think about it. What can he do to prevent this? He has hypertension. What would you write in the exam?
Exercise regularly.
Reduce salt intake.
Yes, he can reduce salt intake, decrease salt. If he decreases salt, he decreases the amount of water and therefore decreasing the amount of pressure by decreasing the volume in the blood vessels, right? So decreasing salt intake helps with hypertension. Good. What else can he do? Take his medication. Take his blood pressure medication. Right? Regularly. Right? What else can he do? Diet change. That would involve the salt, reducing the salt intake, more vegetables and so on, more fiber and so on. Fiber, vegetables, that kind of thing. Exercise. This one is very important. Exercise. Exercise. The same things I told you just now, you would use for prevention of diabetes. I did tell you you will use in the prevention and management of hypertension as well. I did tell you that. So in the exam tomorrow, when they put another disease here, you link it to diet. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the end of that paper there. All right. So we're gonna talk now. Everybody go wash your face. We're coming up on the 3 hour mark. And it's amazing that you have me here for 3 hours because I gotta get to the hospital tomorrow, the latest by 6:15. All right, go wash your face. Let's see if we can push in endocrine system. and nervous system, a comparison, and then look at a little bit about both. Wash your face quickly and come back. Take a stretch. Take a stretch. While you're washing your face, we can talk about food tests. Let's talk about food tests. When we get purple color, what food nutrient is present? A purple color, what food nutrient is present?
Protein.
Protein. P for purple, P for protein. And what reagent we use for protein? All right, let's start with the colors first. When starch is present, what color we see?
Blue, black.
Blue, black color. Good. And when sugar is present, when reducing sugar is present, what do you see?
Brick red.
Brick red. Good. So what we use for testing reducing sugar or reagent?
Benedict solution.
Benedict solution for reducing sugar. And what do we use for starch?
Iodine.
Iodine solution. And what do we use for protein?
Calcium.
Potassium hydroxide, copper sulfate.
Copper sulfate and sodium hydroxide. Right? Good. The purple color is coming from that copper sulfate. All right, good. Let's talk about the endocrine system versus the nervous system, which is faster. And that blue-black color we talk about is like really a rust brown kind of color, right? Or we just say blue-black. Which one is faster?
Nervous system.
Nervous system is fast. It's using electrical impulse. Let's start from there. So your endocrine system use hormones. They use hormones in ducts and glands, right? Our nervous system use electrical impulses in the form of what? Neurons, right?
Neurons.
Good. Which one is faster?
Nervous.
Which one has a longer duration of action?
Endocrine.
In other words, it acts longer, right? Shorter duration of action. And which one can act over great distances?
Nervous.
Endocrine.
Endocrine, right? Endocrine. Something else I wanted to ask you about here. Something else I wanted to ask you about. Any other
Sir,
points?
long and short sightedness.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that, but something else I want to talk about on this same endocrine and nervous system. It's not coming back to me. All right. Good. So your hormones involved in endocrine system. Give me some hormones. Give me some names of hormones. Insulin,
ADH.
What's going on this thing, man? Insulin, ADH, cortisol, glucagon, those things, right? And give me some names of your neurons. Sensory,
relay,
motor, intermediate or relay neuron, right? So those are some of the examples there. Good. Let's quickly talk about how the nervous system work. So you have words like effector, stimulus, receptor. What else? So what's a stimulus?
Change in the environment.
Stimulus is simply a change in the environment. So that change in the environment can be pressure, can be light, it can be temperature, right? The receptor is what? A specialized cell or a group of cells that detect that change. Detect the change in the environment. And when your receptor receives that change or detects that change, they will pass that information on to sensory neurons, right? Your sensory neurons take that information as far as where? Your sensory neurons take that information as far as where? Come on, say it. As far as the brain, all right? And then the brain interprets.
Yeah, I didn't want to sound dumb.
The brain interprets it, and then you have to have a response, right? So when the brain is going to interpret that and send the response, before your motor nerve will act, there might be an intermediate neuron that is between, right? Usually the intermediate neuron is at the level of the spinal cord, right? Then your motor neuron goes to your effector. The effector is usually what? The effector is usually what?
A muscle.
The muscle, right? Very good. The effector is usually a muscle that brings about an action, right? So your motor neuron goes to your effectors, which is usually a muscle, to bring about a reaction. So the exam can ask you to say somebody step on a nail, say why they pull away their legs. And you have to be able to say all of that. So when they step on the nail, the receptor detects a change in the environment, which is that pressure or that pain that is, well, the pressure that they feel when they step on the nail. The information is sent via the sensory nerves or the sensory neurons to the level of the brain. The brain interprets what's happening, sends a response. Your motor neuron is activated, which acts on your effector to pull away the foot or to screen from contact with that nail. Exam can ask you, what's your central nervous system? What's your central nervous system?
Brain and spinal cord.
Brain and the spinal cord. And what is your peripheral nervous system? All your peripheral nerves, right? Your peripheral nerves. Good. That's that. What's the next thing that we're going to talk about?
Nephron.
Long and short sightedness.
So we got to talk about the eye and long and short sighted. That's what we're going to close off with talking about the nephron. You remember your cells? You're going to recap. Cells easy, man. Everybody should know cells. Good. Let's talk about long and short sightedness. So if a person is long sighted, it means they can see distant objects clearly. Hypermetropia. They see distant objects clearly, but close objects are blurred. right? And if they can see, if they're short-sighted, it means they will see close objects clearly and distant objects are blurred, right? Can you remember those?
Yes, sir.
So let's look at what the eyeball looks like in a case of this. So in normal vision, in normal vision, that's not normal at all. The eyeball too big. In normal vision, for you to see the light rays entering the eye must converge on the retina. What converge mean? Meet up, right? So the light rays entering the eye, no matter how many they are, for you to see an object clearly, the light rays must converge on the retina, right? Now, in the eye diseases of long and short-sightedness, in short-sightedness, the light rays are converging before the retina. So the light rays are converging here, right? So this person sees, so short-sightedness, the person sees close objects clear, but distant objects are blurred. Is that clear? Close objects are seen clearly and distant objects are blurred. Now, in long-sightedness, the opposite happens. What happens?
Far objects are seen clear and
Distant clear and near blurry.
Distant objects are clear, close objects blurred. Right? Good. So how do you correct them? How do you correct? You have to know that in biology. How do you correct that?
Use converging and diverging lens.
You use a converging or diverging lens. All right, so how do you correct your short-sightedness? You have to spread out this light rays to converge on the retina. So what do we use to do that?
Concave lens.
The concave lens, but you need to know what if the concave lenses are diverging or converging, right? So you use your concave lens to correct your short-sightedness. In the case of long-sightedness now, let's talk about that. In case of long-sightedness, the light is converging at the back of the retina. That's not possible, but that's the idea. At the point where it meets the retina, it didn't converge completely. So that's why we are assuming it will converge at the back if we were to continue. So in long-sightedness, the person is seeing far objects clear, but close objects blur. And it makes sense because the more you move something away from the eye, the more this part here going to happen on the eyeball here, right? So the more you move something away, the more it's going to converge on the retina. That's why you're seeing distant objects clearly, but the closer they are, the blurrier you would see it, right? That's simply because of what that drawing is showing you there. Then, how do you correct that? Using your convex lenses, and your convex lens will bring that in to converge on the retina. There are two other eye diseases, cataract and glaucoma. Let's talk about those quickly. Cataract is a clouding of the lens. This is often happening in diabetes. So a clouding of the lens, aging also happens with that, or aging also causes that. And glaucoma is an increase in the eye pressures. an increase in the eye pressure. Right? Puts a strain on the optic nerve and can cause blindness, right? This one here, we can repair this by adding an artificial lens, remove that clouding and remove that lens and add an artificial lens. But this one here, glaucoma, when the optic nerve is damaged because of that increased eye pressure, we can't repair that. Are we learning still? Am I making sense? Am I wasting my time? Because I'm not making money. I must be making some progress.
Yes, sir.
I hope so. Good. So that's eye diseases. Let's talk a little bit about the nephron now. So the nephron is the functional unit of the kidneys. And what all that means is that the kidney does what it does because of the nephron, right? And there are millions of nephrons in the kidney. So there are different parts. There are different parts of the nephron, and we're going to label that. We have our glomerulus. We have our Bowman's capsule. We have our proximal convoluted tubule. That just means that the top coil. Then we have the loop of Henle, or Henle's loop. And we have the distal convoluted tubule. And then we have your collecting duct. So for you to understand what the nephron does, somebody said 3 hours. Yeah, we're pushing it now. So for you to understand what the nephron does, you must understand what is happening at each part of this. What's the main function of the nephron again, or the main function of the kidneys? Don't sleep on me now. Don't sleep on me now. What's the main function of the kidneys?
To clean blood.
To clean the blood, to purify the blood, to remove the toxins. What's the toxin we're trying to remove?
Urea.
Urea, right? So the body is trying to do all of this here just to get rid of urea. But the body can't get rid of urea by itself. In your urine, what is in the urine? The main thing is the urea, yes, but what else?
Minerals.
Water.
Salt.
Water.
Right? The salts would be the minerals, right? So some sodium chloride, other salts, other ions as well, water, and urea. This is what our urine is. But for us to get rid of urea, we can't just get rid of urea just like that. It's a process that has to happen. So let me show you. So blood is coming to this nephron, right? The glomerulus is acting as that strainer together with your Bowman's capsule to filter blood in. So we have what we call ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration just simply means very microscopic filtration. So the substances that are small enough will pass into the nephron. What are some of the things that will pass into the nephron? Small enough substances. Water, minerals or salts, urea, glucose, amino acids, hormones, good. But all of those things don't go into the urine, right? So it therefore means the body must have some way of taking back out the useful substances so they don't end up in the urine. Whatever is inside this nephron that remains in that nephron will find its way in the urine. I'll say it again. Whatever is inside of this nephron, if it's not reabsorbed, will find its way in the urine, right? So the body has various mechanisms to make sure that the things that should not be in the urine are not there. And one of those things that the body has, sorry, sorry, what did I say? One of the things that the body has is reabsorption. Reabsorption is a process where the body is moving the useful substances that might have been secreted in the nephron back into the body. Is there a reverse button? I don't want to draw that back. Yes, there is. Good. So let me go there again. So what are those things that enter into this nephron again? Can you remember them?
Water,
salt,
and urea.
That's all?
Water, salt, glucose.
Hormones,
Hormone,
amino acids.
Platelets.
No, platelets are too big. They don't pass.
What?
Amino acids, hormones, glucose. Good. Most of those are reabsorbed at the proximal convoluted tubule. Most of those substances that you just called are reabsorbed here. In other words, they move from inside the tubules out back into the body. So they are reabsorbed, meaning they're moving back into the body, right? Now, what would remain inside here would be some salts. All the glucose are reabsorbed. All the amino acids are reabsorbed. All your hormones, all your vitamins are reabsorbed right here at the proximal convoluted tubule. Coming down here, we have some salts, some water. Well, not some water. All the water is still here. You have urea. And then we have another process called secretion. What is secretion? Remember we said reabsorption is moving from where? In the tubule back into the body. From the tubule back into the body, right? So therefore secretion will be the opposite, moving from the body into the tubule. Anything that is secreted will find its way in the urine. Anything that is reabsorbed will not be in the urine. So remember that. Whatever is reabsorbed does not go into the urine. Whatever is secreted will be in the urine. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So what do you think the body would want to secrete?
Urea.
Very good. Urea. So urea will be going into this nephron, right? So urea will ultimately find itself, more and more of it will find itself in the urine. Good. At the level of the Lupa Henle, though, salts are going to be reabsorbed. Example, sodium chloride. Anytime sodium is reabsorbed, what will follow?
Water.
Water. Very good. And this is the reason why you can't eat a diet with a lot of salt, because the body will always try to keep back that salt. So the more salt your diet includes is the more salt the body will reabsorb, and therefore more what?
More water will be reabsorbed.
More water will be reabsorbed. If you increase the amount of water being reabsorbed, you're increasing your blood volume. If you increase the blood volume, what are you also increasing?
Blood pressure.
Blood pressure. And that's the reason why when you eat salt, you get hypertension. Too much salt leads to hypertension. Why? Because the body will always try to reabsorb it. When you're reabsorbing that salt, it will also reabsorb water, which will cause an increase in the blood pressure and therefore
hypertension.
Hypertension. All right? Good. So Lupa Henle would remove some water, some salt. All of it is not removed, though some still remain there. At the distal convoluted tubule, this is where your ADH acts. So this is the last part now that the body can try to remove some water if the person is dehydrated, right? So if ADH acts on this part, and some water is removed, what would happen? Would the urine become concentrated or less concentrated?
I didn't quite get it. But that question.
If the body is releasing more ADH, it will be more reabsorption of water and therefore less urine. So the urine will be concentrated. If the body is not reabsorbing if the body is not releasing ADH and therefore not reabsorbing water, what do you have happening?
Urine won't be concentrated.
The urine wouldn't be concentrated. The urine will therefore be what? Concentrated urine will be seen as what? Clear.
Clear.
All right,
not clear.
Concentrated urine will be seen as what? Dark urine. So the less concentrated urine will be seen as what? Clear urine. So when you're seeing clear urine, it just means your body is well hydrated, which is good. The darker your urine is, the more water you need to drink. Do you understand that, students?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So the more ADH is released, more water will be reabsorbed, less urine will be coming out here, right? Whatever remains after that distal convoluted tubule will be coming out in the urine. Whatever remains after that distal convoluted tubule will be coming out in the urine. And that is oftentimes lots of urea, some water, and some salts. If your body doesn't have enough water to flush out that urea, they can form stones. That's where you have your kidney stones. So your water is very important, right? And that is the nephron in a nutshell. The purpose of the nephron generally is to get rid of that urea, water, and salts. Urea, water, and salt. But the process is complicated simply because when the urea come in, other things are coming in as well. Other things that are small like urea, glucose, amino acids, hormones, etc. So the body now has to get rid of the urea, but it cannot get rid of the useful substances. So the body now has to reabsorb those useful substances, amino acids, glucose, and so on. Most of that happens where? At your proximal convoluted tubule. What happens at your loop of Henle?
Urea is
urea can be secreted, but mostly is water being reabsorbed. Water is being reabsorbed from sodium reabsorption, right? What happens at the distal convoluted tubule? ADH is released. ADH is released, right? And ADH will cause what?
Reabsorption of water.
Reabsorption of water.
Reabsorption of water. Very good. More water is reabsorbed, less urine, right?
Yes, sir.
The less urine, the darker it will. The less water, the darker the urine would be. Yeah. If less urine is reabsorbed, if less ADH is released and less water is reabsorbed, what is the color of the urine?
Clear.
Dark or clear? It will be clear.
Clear.
Good. All right? If a person is hydrated, if a person is well hydrated, do you expect the urine to be dark or clear?
Clear.
Clear.
Person is well hydrated, the urine will be
clear.
Clear. If the person's urine is dark, the person is dehydrated, right? And the person needs to increase their water intake. All right. Good. Some things you want to touch on before you sleep. If you haven't done it in a while, plant biology. Know how the xylem and phloem vessels are positioned side by side of each other. Know what the sieve tube looks like. What else? Know how to classify living things. Last year had some pictures of fishes and so on, and people had to talk about how you can classify the fish, and people couldn't do that. Right? So know how to classify living things is oftentimes the first few pages in your textbook. All right? Anything else? Any other questions? Any comments or so?
Sir, by any chance you can't teach chemistry?
No.
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 I mean, you could try.
I can, but you have expert teachers to help you with that, not me.
Emphasis on expert.
Could just use chemistry as a chance to meet up again next year.
What?
Stop it. Stop it. Anyway, I'm very much impressed with Mr. Canterbury. Please make sure you get that grade 1 tomorrow. I look forward to hearing how the exam went after the exam. So please don't be the least you can do. I'll be stuck in the hospital, I'll be bored, can't get away. The least you can do is let me know how the exam goes, right?
Sir, before you go, will you touch on nephron urine formation, or this is the diagram for it?
That is it.
I laugh.
Like you did drop the sleep.
That is it. That is the
nephron. So you feel like we would have to draw that?
Yeah, I feel like you might have to draw that. It didn't.
I feel like I just always I didn't know what I have to draw, and after I just mess it up.
Yeah, so don't risk it. Just do it, man. Just do it, and if it comes, it comes. If
I feel like I so cooked for bio. I just now do 3 hours and something on biology, and I still feel like
right. Somebody's saying the menstrual cycle. Yes, I wanted to go over the menstrual cycle, but I can't. Right now, I need to sleep. Right. So here, go and look for a nice YouTube video on the menstrual cycle. Right. Know the hormones. Know the hormones, know what the hormones do. Progesterone,
luteinizing hormone,
thickens the uterus wall. Thickens the uterus wall to hold the pregnancy. Progesterone thickens the uterus wall to hold the pregnancy. Luteinizing hormone causes the release of a matured egg. That's ovulation, right? Release a matured egg. That's ovulation. Estrogen starts the cycle. Follicle stimulating hormone cause the development of a follicle or the maturation of the egg, right? So know the hormones, know at what point the hormones will peak in the menstrual cycle. What day of the cycle is ovulation?
14.
Day 14 is ovulation. The cycle ranges from day 1 to day 28. The first day of the cycle is the first day the person sees blood. The start of the cycle, it will start with the first day the person sees blood, right? 14 days after that first day, another egg will be released, right? And for the next 14 days, the uterus has to prepare in case there's pregnancy. So at this point here, progesterone levels will be high. Progesterone levels are high because the body is preparing for a pregnancy coming to that uterus, right? If there's no pregnancy, that thickened uterus wall begins to shed and break down. When that uterus wall sheds and breaks down, we see it as day 1 when the person passes blood. I gave you the cycle there in a nutshell. Right, but look for a YouTube video that slows this down and make sure you understand it. All right?
I feel so cooked for tomorrow.
I'm sorry, but I'm drained because I had 2 hours with my medical students before this, and this is about 3 hours with you. So I've been looking at this screen for the last 5 hours. In fact, it's almost 6 hours, right? So sorry, I can't do any more. But all the best. Please take your time in the exam. Oh, a tip is this. If you're not sure what the answer to this question is, look at the question below it. The question below it often is a good indication as to what they expect of you in the question before. So if you don't know an answer right away, don't jump and write nonsense. Look at the next question and you can figure it out. Right? Good. Is there anything else I can tell you quickly? Communicable, non-communicable diseases. Communicable, these are those diseases spread from person to person. Non-communicable disease would be those diseases that don't spread from person to person, but are because of genetic or environmental factors. So examples of your communicable disease will be what? Spread from person to person. Diseases spread from person to COVID-19, HIV, all your STIs, right? Non-communicable, that would be what?
Diabetes.
Diabetes, cancer. Let's talk about cancer quickly. What's cancer? Overgrowth
of cells
or rapid growth of abnormal cells, right? So these abnormal cells are growing out of control, right? And cancer can happen anywhere cells are. So the abnormal growth of these cells can lead to a mass, right? And signs and symptoms can happen as a result of that. So if there's a mass, if cancer can happen all over the body, and they ask you to name a cancer, you should just put the name of the body organ and the word cancer at the back of it. Last year or so, somebody asked to name a cancer of the male reproductive organ other than prostate cancer. And people couldn't answer that question, right? Just remember penile cancer, prostatic cancer. There's so many things Mike can think about, right? Testicular cancer, scrotal cancer, cervical cancer. I think the person is joking. Cervical cancer is in women, right? Not in men, right? Cervical cancer, what STI leads to cervical cancer? STI infection leads to cervical cancer. Which one?
HPV.
HPV. HPV leads to cervical cancer later on in life, and we can prevent HPV infection by becoming vaccinated against HPV. Vaccinated against HPV. One thing before we go. This is the last thing. It just came to me. So, immunity. Immunity. What is immunity? The body's ability to fight off
infections and viruses.
Of infection. Now we have a few types of immunity. Remember those?
Passive.
We have active
and passive.
Right? And each of them have two. Natural,
artificial.
Right? Natural and artificial. Let's talk about these quickly because I can bring this table for you to figure out. All right, so let's talk about this. So active means the body is making antibodies. Why you want to make antibodies? Antibodies fight off pathogens, right? So in active immunity, what's happening in active immunity?
The body is making antibodies.
Body is making antibodies. And in passive immunity, the body is receiving ready-made antibodies. Everybody's there?
Yes, sir.
In active,
one more time.
In active, the body is making antibodies. In passive, the body is receiving antibodies, right? Ready-made antibodies. Why you have a natural and an artificial? Natural simply means the body is exposed naturally to a pathogen. So for example, chickenpox. You are exposed to chickenpox and the body will make antibodies for itself because you're exposed. When the body makes antibodies, the antibody will prevent you from getting that infection again in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
One more time. Natural, the body is making antibodies because it was naturally exposed to the pathogen. For example, in chickenpox, the person was naturally exposed to the pathogen that caused chickenpox, and they make the antibody against chickenpox. They will not get chickenpox again. Why? Because they have the antibodies against chickenpox. In the artificial one now, we are exposing the body to artificial pathogens or to weakened pathogens. How do we do that?
Vaccines.
Vaccines. We give a dead or a weakened version of the pathogen, and then the person's body will now make antibodies. Remember, in all the active cases, the body is making what?
Antibodies for itself.
Antibodies for itself. Artificial is because the body is given a vaccine to stimulate it to make antibodies. In natural, the body is exposed in a real life situation. For example, you got COVID, your body will make antibodies against COVID. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
If you're vaccinated against COVID, your body will make antibodies because you were given a weakened version of the pathogen. Now, on the other side of it, on the passive side, remember passive means what? The body is?
Getting ready-made antibodies.
Ready-made antibodies. But there's a natural one here. Where is it natural? So somebody had ready-made antibodies. I'm hearing myself. Somebody mute yourself. Somebody had ready-made antibodies that is passed. Oh, I hate hearing myself. Can you please mute that? Somebody had ready-made antibodies being passed. For example, mother through breastfeeding. So breastfeeding and the placenta, the body is making antibodies in the woman, right? And she's passing that now to the baby. So in the baby, this would be what? Passive natural immunity. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
In the baby, it will be passive natural immunity because the baby's body is receiving ready-made antibodies that were made in a human body. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And in artificial now, in artificial passive, we are making antibodies in a lab. Why are we making antibodies in a lab? Because certain things like, for example, snake bite, if you don't have the antibodies or the toxins or the antitoxin to neutralize that bite, you can die. All right? So we're going to make the antibody in the lab and have it available in case of emergencies. So this one is for emergencies. Artificial passive is the case of emergencies. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's go it one more time.
Yes, sir.
Remember, immunity is the body's ability to fight off infection. We have active and we have passive. On the active, the body is making antibodies. On the passive, the body is receiving antibodies. On the both of them, you have two categories, natural and artificial. Natural and artificial. On the natural, the person is exposed naturally to a pathogen. On the artificial, the person is exposed to a weakened pathogen, right? And their body will always make antibodies. The good thing about this is that once the body makes the antibody, the body has something called memory cells. So in the future, it can make more antibodies. In the future, it can make more antibodies. On the passive side of things, because the body was receiving ready-made antibody, it never made its own antibody. So it can never produce memory cells, and therefore it will always need to get more antibodies. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Passive immunity, ready-made antibody. We have a natural one. This is being made in a person and is being passed to another person. For example, the mother passing antibodies that she made through her breast milk to her baby. That is, for the baby, that is passive natural immunity. And artificial now is only used in emergency situations where we need the antibodies for emergency purposes. Like, for example, in a snake bite. Is that good?
Yes, sir.
All right. That is it. That is it. All the very best. Hopefully the things we touch on will be on the exam. Let me know how it goes. Remember to get some sleep, right? I wish you guys nothing but the best. Take care of yourself and make yourselves very, very proud tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Something so. Bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Marisa, I deserve a Spanish. Wow, that is wild. Wild.
No,
You don't like red
You know
one.
you wouldn't enjoy yourself. No,
You go down the law.
You need like that.
You don't like red one.
Yeah, see later you sleep
You
like.
need you need like people with melanin.
You don't like red man. Don't let the one experience make fool y'all, I know.
I go. Bye.
I'm a cartoon jump out.
He must jump out. He don't know
We know.
terrorist
So
deal.
leave the class and just leave here. Anyways, fellas, I cooked for tomorrow. What was you?
You cook, the thugs cook.
We cooking tomorrow, what?
Wait, what last year? Yeah, man.
Why, Crossfield, if you only see what we say down tomorrow, why?
I am.
I
You
don't
know
win.
why?
Why?
Yara.
When I look how far I sit down in front of the class, how far I was. And when they say,
Oh no.
in front, I say, what?
Oh no.
Gosh. Did him that
Trouble.
behind me? Kiara the be. I say, what? There's pressure.
You fight.
What do you mean I fine, but I can't look at nobody paper like that.
Yeah, but you get Kiara right there. When you bring us back as a Kiara.
I Kiara the 250 behind me. Kiara the 250 behind me.
Going on for biology,
in the
really.
exam by carry a piece of paper in the exam, write down what you got right, and I go on
If y'all
back.
only see who's we invigilator, this lady scary.
Ooh.
The big one?
The big one with the tattoo push your foot. What?
God.
God.
Plus by his little bit to be in one room. Pressure is real.
Which room we there, you know?
We in the AC room, buddy. The big
All we or just you?
All we, buddy.
Oh God. Ooh. Pain. Yeah, everyone alive, you know.
I don't know she
still
don't.
alive?
What?
What? AJ just said we still alive. You lie.
You lie.
No, AJ, you can't lie.
Yeah, I don't know she don't spare nobody.
Tell me why.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, live on YouTube, you know. We still live?
We still
live. What? Oh my gosh.
Real?
I thought he saw everything. He said you in bed.
Wait,
Why
so
this
say that